I'd like to call the special meeting of the City of Post Falls Planning and Zoning Commission, May 26th, to order. Will you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome everyone. People are probably going, wait a minute, can I sit in this row or can I not? You can. It's open, so that's good. Make sure that if you do wish to speak tonight, that you get that piece of paper, fill out all the information, and get it turned in up front, and we will go ahead and get things going. With that, we'll start with roll call.
Terry? She's not here. Hampy?
Here.
Stephenson?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Schlauer?
Here.
Ward?
Here.
Kimball?
Here. All right, Mr. Manley, do we have any amendments to the agenda this evening?
There's none.
Ceremonies, announcements, appointments, or presentation?
Yeah, just have a sort of a quick reference guide that was emailed to you guys, I believe last week. It is there. It is for reference. Just leave it. We will collect them at the end of the night and set them out at each meeting so that they don't get lost.
So yeah, you all have that electronically? Ross says no. She's going to try to sneak it out. Declaration of conflict. Commissioners, any declaration of conflict this evening?
None.
No.
None? Okay. Seeing none, then we will move forward to the consent calendar.
Yeah, the item A is the joint workshop minutes from March 30th this year. Meeting minutes, April 27th, 2021. Reasoned decision, Foxtel zone change file number RZNE 3, 2021. Zoning recommendation for the Pleasant View North annexation, file number ANNX 8, 2021. And the reasoned decision for Crown Enterprise Truck Terminal special use permit, file number USC 2, 2021.
Right, Commissioners, hopefully you had a chance to review those. Any questions? And if not, I would look for a motion.
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Got a motion, a second, call for vote?
Stephenson?
Yes.
Kimball?
Abstain?
Davis?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Schlauer?
Yes.
Hampy?
Yes.
All right, citizen issues. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens to address the commission on an issue that is not on this evening's agenda. One other note, comments on issues that are coming up in planned future meetings. We ask that you would hold it until then. Do we have anyone here for general citizen issues? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on. We do not have any unfinished or old business, correct?
No, there is the action
there is.
item here for the reasoned decision for AA construction subdivision. There was that language that was in the staff report crafted between staff and planning to see if we got that proposed language correct.
Okay.
It's the condition language at the end of that decision.
You pulling that up?
Trying to. Sorry, I have it on the.
It was that condition, Ray, that you suggested to be part of the AA construction subdivision.
Was that the one kind of right behind the fire station?
Yes.
Yes.
So it's the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me find that in my packet here.
There we go. I can open it up.
Maybe you can bring it up.
77.
877. Thank you.
Or thereabouts.
So yeah, it's condition 8. Prior to the recording of a subdivision plat under the direction of a geotechnical engineer, the applicant must remove all native material, concrete, etc., and all native soils from the site located in lots 1, 2, and 3 of Block 1. Regrade the pit with 3-to-1 side slopes and fence the site. And the site, I believe, refers to just the pit for security and to prevent unauthorized dumping on the site and into the pit.
Turn your volume up. And in that case, Field, are we just looking for clarification on that, or do we need to actually make a motion?
Go up to media.
So, yeah, it would be a motion. It's just, it's not an item. Normally, we would put the reasoned decisions on the consent calendar like you just approved.
Okay.
With this one, because we wanted to make sure that the language was crafted correctly, and what we wanted you guys to review that to make sure that met with your intent.
What do you think, Ray?
I think that works. I don't see anything that alarms me there, so I think it should be fine. Not having the subdivision in front of me, it's hard to tell exactly what that means, but from what I remember, that seems right. So,
Field, in a case like this, then we need to have a motion to approve
Just approve the reasoned decision and have the
as presented.
as presented. Yep.
I would move to approve the reasoned decision for the AA subdivision as presented.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comment, questions? Nope. Call for a vote.
Hamby,
Yes.
Plowhauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Stephenson.
Yes.
One quick thing before we go to the public hearings.
Yes.
There is some difficulty of hearing in the back of the room, so we can't turn the volumes up on these. I just checked with media, so if we could work on maybe
Projecting our voices.
projecting a little bit more, or if the individuals can't hear, move closer to the front.
Okay.
That may help too.
Fair enough. All right. With that being said, again, if you wish to provide comment for any of these public hearings, make sure that you do fill out the paperwork and turn it in up front. And at this point, I believe we are ready to get into the main portion of this evening and go ahead and open the first public hearing. Mr. Manley to present.
Good evening, Commissioner. John Manley, Planning Manager with the City of Post Falls. Presenting the Colca-Kelly Annexation Case File ANNX 6, 2021. There's a couple owners here. There's the Colca Land LLC and Jim Kelly. Their addresses are on the screen there. Their representative is Dobler Engineering and is present this evening. And what they're seeking for is a recommendation to City Council for the requested R1 zoning district on 3 separate parcels into the City of Post Falls. Once again, P&Z just recommends the zone. City Council makes the actual decision on the annexation. The location, as you see here, is on the southwest corner of Grange and McGuire. Some general information. Currently, they're large lot residential homes within Kootenai County. There's no significant topography or vegetation issues on the site. Water would be provided by East Green Acres, with sewer being provided by the City of Post Falls. Here you see the zoning in the immediate vicinity. R1S is to the east of McGuire, and to the south, you can see the other yellow in the City of Post Falls as R1. What you see in red there, that's an identified potential area suitable for a commercial node. Some may ask, why is that there? That's there because there's, within our comprehensive plan, a desire to create more off-corridor commercials. So we're not concentrating all of our commercial on 2 corridors, Highway 41 or the Celtice Way. That way we can get some services closer to residences. Looking at the review criteria, the first 3 is, are you consistent with the future land use map? Goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan, are we consistent with those? Looking at items like street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, and other community plans, as well as those geographic and natural features. In the staff report, you've seen the staff analysis that the proposed R1, there was no issues with the street classifications or the traffic patterns for the proposed R1 designation. Neither is there any geographic or natural features to encumber development of the site. Going into the future land use map, you see the proposed hatched box area. The This is set up going from the west. Pleasant View's to the west. So along Pleasant View, you have your business commercial corridor, and then you have this gap that is transitional. I'm going to talk about transitional in just a bit, but the business commercial is planning for uses such as industrial, commercial, or maybe your medium to higher densities. And then there's transition from those to the R1S, your larger lot developments in the city of Post Falls. So looking at this area in context with zoning and proposals, you see that business commercial on the right, that's the future land use map. Along Celtice Way, you see your high density, medium density, and the medium density to the southwest. And this is along Celtice Way. The theory is you have some heavier uses along Celtice Way. The built environment can provide buffers and mitigating impacts of higher impactful uses to your single-family residents down the road. Once again, comp plans look at a 20-year horizon, assuming that things don't stay static like they are today, and you plan for the evolution of annexations if they ever come to be. So on the left side of the screen, the project area that we're looking at is where my cursor is here. You can see to the south by Midway, we have had 2 annexations into the city of Post Falls at this point. And so you can see here how this lines up the medium density with the R2. There was a single family proposal at this location. Both were consistent with the comp plan with that and the future land use map as with this request. Just wanted to give you the context of the request with some of that surrounding environment in the future land use map. So that transitional land use, what it looks at is the focus area. Because we broke the city of Post Falls into a bunch of focus areas, because being 9 miles long, going up to Prairie Avenue, it's quite extensive. So to give guidance and potentiality of some more finite decision-making within those areas, this was within the West Prairie. It's a pretty small font to just copy and paste this. This is an excerpt from Exhibit A, in the comp plan, Exhibit A. So you see here, portions are expected to develop as future residential within the West Prairie, and a mixed residential envisioned between McGuire and Corbin with higher densities near commercial corridors or arterials. So once again, you're acknowledging that your heavier impactful roads have more of a negative impact on smaller, low density, and you use that medium density to kind of buffer. This would be considered a low density development though. Some of the goals: grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing a community prosperity and fiscal health. And this kind of ties into the other goal too: plan for establish a quantities of land uses, supporting community needs and city's long-term sustainability. Job growth and job creation. If you're going to expand the job base and the economic base within the community, providing a mix of housing helps provide that fiscal health and keep the long-term sustainability of the city. You'll see in the next slide and how this also ties in, 48% of the city is currently R1. So there's a strong need for providing that R1 to keep that desired housing product in the city. The other goal is to protect and maintain Post Falls' natural resources, including clean air, soils, river, and the aquifer, and minimizing light and noise pollution. So getting these lots that are on septic onto sanitary sewer helps improve the effects of sewer systems on the aquifer, as well as what I mentioned before, through development and the right scale of development helps minimize some of that light and air pollution on other developments. The policies that are in the comp plan pertinent to this request: maintain and enhance community levels of surface. Impact fees are paid with the time of building permits. They pay for parks, public safety, and streets that kind of help mitigate and a level of growth paying for their impact. Foster the long-term fiscal health of the community. Diversified housing, I've already kind of commented on that. enhance the residential quality of life. So as you're developing, are you creating areas where you work, live, play, and have amenities nearby? So where they're proposing this is at this location, just west. You do have to the east, less than a quarter mile, the park at the Prairie Meadows, which is a public park. If you're at the southern extent of this, you would have about 0.6 miles from that location to the northern park at Prairie Meadows. If you're at the northern part, you're at about a half mile. As far as transportation, there is an existing paved road at this location. When they go to develop, they would improve their portion adjacent to Grange at this, as well as their portion of this. So there would be a paved road section. I talked with Rob Paulus. It'd be a minimum of 28 feet, which is equal to many of our local residential streets from the northwest corner to McGuire. And then there would be the associated improvements on the west side of McGuire. Here's where you see the parks level of service map. This is a 1 acre buffer for all the parks within the city of Post Falls, and the goal is to get all the residences within 1 mile of a park. And this does meet, it is within that 1 mile range. Another policy is apply in zoning designations with considering the following factors. I've gone over a lot of this, the future land use mapping, the surrounding uses. Regarding infrastructure and future traffic patterns, in the staff report, you saw how this project is compatible with those elements of the policies. And then you see also within the staff report, further explanation of how this meets the goals and policies of the comp plan. This taps into the housing needs, policy 15, available for future housing needs, helping serve residents of all ages. And then here's where that 48% is. And with Post Falls continuing growing at 4.8, additional housing will be needed to support the growth demands on the city. Once again, this was the 3 criteria that I just went over. All of those kind of highlight that element of the first 3. Going on to the other 3 criteria, commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with higher road classifications. I believe if someone came in with a medium or higher density project, there would be merit against McGuire, because McGuire isn't necessarily going to be it's a higher classified roadway. But in this case, they are asking for the low density, which going into the next criteria, neighborhood commercial or low density is typically assigned as property to proceed further away from higher intense urban activity areas. This would be the case. It is removed from Southeast Way and Mullen Avenue. But there is a desire, like I stated, to create some off-corridor commercial. Because if you can reduce some of the VMTs and the miles traveled for your daily services, then you're relieving those other corridors from their impacts in those corridors. They're not asking for industrial zoning, so that really isn't applicable, the last one. Agencies notified, as you see here. You can see the school district is notified on these proposals, the fire department. A lot of your gas and utility services are notified as well. So typically, if there's concerns, they respond. We did receive comments from the Post Falls Police Department, and they remain neutral on it. CUNY County Fire and Rescue, they remain neutral on it. In DEQ, they would have more comments for construction-related items rather than this particular decision. So in ending here, this is the sum of the 6 criteria that you're going to be looking at the proposed zoning that would go along with a future decision on annexation by City Council and the area here on the right. Any comments or questions for me at this time?
No, just for clarification, because I know that it did come up within the packet, but you did talk to engineering, and those improvements are basically the entire length.
Well, absent of I'll go back to, actually I have the picture here. So they will be doing typically the improvements, typically it's centerline plus 10 for the proportion that's adjacent to them. So where you see the red, those 2 sections would receive that. The middle section, though, the area that's where the current right here, that gap would still have 28 feet. It wouldn't have the associated swell, sidewalk, and street trees that would go along
Right.
with typical development.
Yeah, okay.
John, I got a quick question for you. Would it be appropriate to annex the entire road to the east or to the west at this time?
Thanks for bringing that. We are seeking to annex the entire road with this annexation.
Okay, so the highway district isn't going to end up with a little gap in the middle, right? That's kind of the idea
No.
behind that? Okay.
I meant to bring that up, and that one slipped up, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Other questions? None? Nope. Okay. Thank you, sir. Invite the applicant up.
Do you have anything to bring up? I'm on here. What's that, are you?
This guy right there.
There we go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Staff's done a good job. I won't belabor, but I do want to focus on a few things. In fact, we can just sit on this picture for a minute. So as John's staff pointed out, we would be improving Grange on our frontage. We had approached the owner here several times to buy that piece, just as an aside, and weren't able to come to an arrangement. So this is really what we're left with. That's just the way it played out this time. But we will be doing full frontage improvements on McGuire for the whole length of the project, which is a substantial length, as you can see. And those improvements will include a multi-use path. So, again, let's just stay on this picture.
One quick thing. Did we get the name and address for record?
I said, well, Gordon Dobler, address P.O. Box 3181, Hayden, Idaho.
There we go.
Thank you.
Way to be on top. Thank you.
Yeah, good job. Anyway, the section for McGuire would include a multi-use, 10-foot multi-use path. The interior, and we've been working on a layout for the subdivision with staff for a couple of months now, and we will have an access onto McGuire and then through the subdivision, another access here onto Grange. So we will have two accesses. Fire code requires that connectivity. There'll be sidewalk on Grange, so we'll have, at least our frontage will have pedestrian connectivity there. And we will have a pedestrian connectivity from an interior street out to McGuire, so the pedestrian traffic can access McGuire north and south. They can have more direct access to the park that way. No, the park in this public park across the street.
We'll pause just real quick. If there's questions, you can fill out, again, the paperwork and turn it in, but during presentation, we ask that there's no questions from the gallery, so I appreciate it.
John's talked about the transitional. This fits within there. It's actually lower density, and I would pause here to say that I understand that, there's a lot of development in Post Falls. That's no secret, and I understand that Planning Commission and City Council is trying to deal with that and as best they can. Here's what I want to say is that there really is less than in 1 year backlog of lots in this R1 density zone. And, case in point, if you just look in this area, I've done two of these subdivisions just further east here, Tranquil and Quiet Ridge. They're built out within a year. Everything we come in, Arrowleaf, built out. So my point again is there's really not a backlog of lots in that R1 density. They all get built out. There's a big demand. As staff said, 48% and growing. People want to live here. So the intent of this is really to meet that demand. So the zoning is consistent with the transitional, which even envisions at some points higher density. This would be a lower density, but again, that's where the market demand is right now. You've seen the current land use, R1S across the street, future land use anticipates, like I said, the transitional zone allows for the R1. Schools, quick look at schools. Interesting statistic is single-family developments. The Urban Land Institute actually did a study, several studies, and the outcome of that was they found that typical single-family dwelling generates about 0.6 kids per house in school age, and that's high school through kindergarten. Utilities, we've got sewer down here. East Green Acres has got water in both streets, connect, loop. There's capacity there. Utilities aren't going to be a problem. Transportation, we've talked about McGuire as a minor arterial. We will widen it. It's a good fit. The houses will back up to McGuire, but we will have access to it as well as Grange. So, and I believe there's a comment from staff in the staff report about the capacity of McGuire is well able to take the additional traffic. Parks, we've looked at parks. Of course, the closest one is across the street, but there's 5 parks within a 3/4 mile radius. And with the pedestrian connectivity crossing McGuire, they're accessible to even kids on bicycles. Land use, I think John did a good job. I don't have anything much to add. Housing goals, economic basis, impact fees, and building permit pays for new facilities. We build the infrastructure, impact fees pay for parks and open space purchase. This, without a PUD, these developments do not donate park land, but they contribute, I think it's $1,200 or $1,300 per lot towards the purchase of park land for future parks. There you have it.
Questions for applicant? None? All right. Thank you, sir. Public comment. Those in favor?
None.
Those neutral?
None.
Those opposed? And I will use a statement that I use almost every single meeting. If for some reason I butcher your name, it is not personal. It's just sometimes that happens. Actually, quite a bit that happens. I apologize. Email that was sent in that I'm assuming this one didn't get in the packet, so we'll need to read in. James and Marcia Marhorfke, again. We are opposed to the annexation. It is time to put slow on the growth and let the city catch up with all the current approved construction. Growth is not always the best option for the community. Our home is less than 300 feet from the proposed annexation. I have been told that this is the only reason we received the notice from the city. At least the sign could have been posted on the property in question across from the entrance and the exit of McGuire from Prairie Meadows. This area does not need the possibility of 90 homes with 150 plus vehicles added to the roadway. More though, and consideration should be given to current residents. In opposition, filling out their own mark maybe, is William and Teresa Fuller. Are you here? Yes. Do you wish to speak? If so, you can come up, state your name, address, and you have 4 minutes. Or if you want me to, I can read. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Teresa, and I just want to say that we just moved here, and we moved here because we wanted to move into the country.
Would you state your address for the record,
sorry.
please? Oh, no, you're fine.
It is 3235 North McGuire. So it's right across the street on Grange from this whole thing. We wanted to come to be able to be in the country, to see the horses. We wanted to see the view, to build flowers. We are renovating an old farmhouse, and we're going to keep it that way. And now we're going to have this huge conglomeration of houses and cars, and they're going to widen McGuire, and then our property is probably right there, so they'll probably have to take some of it. And I don't know if they're going to do that with Grange or not, but if we had known this was coming, we would not have bought here or bought that plot. I know people need housing. I know that you need to have housing here, but geez, right across the street from us when we just moved here and are putting all our money into doing that beautiful house that we want, that's an old farmhouse built in what, 95? No. What?
Did I hear 1905?
1905, right. And we want to keep that land. It's got beautiful flowers. The people are wonderful around us. So anyhow, I hope you don't do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just going through here just to make sure that we have all the right ones. In opposition, wishing to speak, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, are you here? I'm going to let you pronounce. I'll have you come up, state your name and address, and you have 4 minutes. Melodry.
Melendreras?
There you go.
Okay, see, okay, 2604 Fisher Avenue,
Okay.
here in Post Falls. Okay. I've been in this area for 31 years, but the growth in the last few years has been tremendous. No regard for the planet or our health. The pastures and orchards we live on are above the aquifer. We need to have enough green space drainage to restore the water table due to the growing demand of clean drinking water. For 31 years, I've heard Panhandle Health say, we are protecting the aquifer for the next generations. This is why large parcels are necessary. I'm going to get off my speech here because I noticed Panhandle Health was not notified on that whole list of people who were notified. They weren't even asked their opinion. I came into City Hall 5 years ago, and I was shown on a map west of McGuire was not part of city development. I started building on my 5-acre piece in the county with agricultural zoning. I did not buy here to flip or destroy the peaceful way of life. Neither has greed taken hold of me to destroy the land. I want to leave this place better than I arrived. I am in favor of keeping 5-acre pieces and agricultural zoning just as is for my children and my children's children. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Also in opposition, wishing to speak, Pete Hazen? Hazes? Haynes.
Hi, my name is Peter Hanos. I live at 2984 West Grange Road, just down the street from this development. What I see as a problem for the development is considerations that the planning of Post Falls City has come up with before and has given us examples of in the past. These developments have houses with no foundations, like on Idaho and Poline, Grange, and Chase. These houses will rot before their mortgages are done being paid. And when you consider these high-density homes, they're not low-density homes. 90 homes in 18.72 acres is high density. And that gives about 10,000 square feet per home. Then you have to subtract out sidewalks, roads, and everything else out of that. You're looking at 6,000 square feet per home. That's land and house. So that's a real tight fit. And those people, they're not going to live in their homes all the time. They go outside and they go the access to, that they would have to the railroad track, which they're not supposed to be on. They'll be up and down that thing on motorcycles all day long. And this is what you're putting into our backyards. And so when you're considering this, I'd wish you to think about these types of things that you're allowing into our area, because most of them haven't been thought of in other areas that you've given permission for these types of homes. On Grange, it is not actually a paved road, it is a chip-sealed road. That is not an improved road. If you're gonna have this come into this area, they're gonna put sidewalks and widen it where their property is, but you're gonna have an entrance onto Grange that has to go past a narrow spot. So you do nothing at all to get people in and out of that area. So you're gonna cause problems. It's a narrow road that you're gonna put 90 families' cars driving in and out of there. You also have 2 railroad tracks on one end of the property going the other direction, one going the other direction on McGuire, that are not signaled, that are not controlled. And that has to be taken in consideration when you're going to stick up to 180 cars up and down this road right next to where this development is. We've already had several accidents on McGuire and Midway from the development you allowed on the other side of McGuire. And are we going to have to wait until someone dies before we have consideration of what this is going to cause when you keep adding more and more people into a smaller area like this without a road improvement? And when these developers come in and do these things and they don't improve the roads, they don't improve traffic signals and things like that, it puts our lives in jeopardy. The internet situation in that area is very lacking. Unless you have satellite, that's the only way you can get it. And cloudy days, you cannot get internet. And so by putting more population in this area, you actually take internet away from people that have already lived there for over 20 to 40 years. And that's already happened with the development you put across the street of McGuire. That development has caused a tax on the phone system, which is the only way we can get internet. And because that system is overloaded, now we have 0.5 megabytes per second for internet. And that's the only way. We don't have cable. We can't get cable. And so that's what we have when we have these developments come in. You take this away from people that live there. None of that's considered. So I would wish you guys to consider some of these things that are going on, that we have people that have been paying taxes there for years. And now you're going to throw this into us that we've paid for all these years, and you're going to take things away from us. You're going to take our less traveled roads. You're going to take away our safety from those roads, the safety from the railroad tracks. You're going to dump on people traveling up and down the railroad tracks because they can't only stay in a 6,000 square foot area and live. They're going to be riding motorcycles and bicycles and everything up and down the railroad tracks where they don't belong, but they will be. So I'm over my 4 minutes, so I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the testimony. Thank you very much. Steve Clevenger, in opposition, wishing to speak.
Hello, my name is Steve. I live at 2357 West Grange, which is used to be the old Grange house. So we're kitty corner from the development. We're relatively new residents. I'm speaking against that primarily because we would love to continue to see the rural nature of the area. But looking at it realistically, if you decide to go ahead and recommend the annexation of that, my real concern relates to the density, as the previous speaker addressed, in terms of the number of homes, in that area. So my main point, or my main request or consideration there, and I recognize that this is a little premature for what you're deciding on tonight, but my request would be more of, if you're going to approve residential in that area, to see something more akin to a half-acre lot, or, well, 1 acre lot, similar to what is in the property where we are and in the adjacent area. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for letting me speak.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Also wishing to speak does not mark in favor, in opposition, or neutral. Angela Adams?
My name is Angela Adams, and I live at 2534 West Grange. I'm the parcel of property that is not being annexed into the subdivision. And my husband was born and raised here, third-generation Idahoan. We moved here in 1974, but I am not against development. People need homes. We have a huge housing need. But what I want is responsible development and good neighbors. When my mom moved here, she was a widow with 4 kids. My dad was an LAPD officer, shot and killed in line of duty. She was an educated woman. She has her degree from UCLA. She bought property in 1974 in Fernand French Gulch. The developer there promised us water. They promised us the sewer would be hooked up. They promised the road would be brought up to county specifications. Here she is, 47 years later, 84 years old, on a dirt road. Her well has collapsed, and she has a lagoon on her property, if you're familiar with the waste going to an actual lagoon. So again, I'm not against development, but I want responsible development. I don't want it overcrowding. And I also want good neighbors to be in our community. And we have actually had a very poor experience so far. We have been approached by neighbors and people in the real estate industry saying, oh, you're selling your home you just built in 2018. No, we have not sold our home. I've had half a dozen people say, well, we've heard you're moving. Where are you moving? On December 21st, there was a surveying company at the neighbor's house, Johnson Surveying. While we were gone, after I left my home, they were in my fenced backyard. I have video of men walking up on my deck looking into my home. I have 2 small children. That terrified them. I called Johnson Surveying 3 times. No one returned my call. I texted them. I will be making a police report. There's people trespassing on my property. So I did get a call back, and I did speak with Mr. Dobler on December 21st. It was after business hours, around 5:30. He was very polite, very kind, very professional. But when he asked who I was, I said, yeah, 2534 Grange, Adams. He calmly responded, yes, we have permission to be on that property because the developer, Stoker, told us we can be there. I reminded him, this is the Adams property. This is not Stoker property. We have also been told that we have been ridiculous with the price that we want for our land. When they approached us in April of 2019, they gave me a platted over my brand new built home, pretty much letting us know, you're not wanted here. So I've been told I'm not wanted there. I've been told I've sold my house. I have people trespassing because someone else is giving them permission, that I'm worried about how the development would be. And as far as significant vegetation goes, we have the old farm trees and rock wall surrounding our entire property. Those trees go anywhere from, I'd say, 50 to 100 feet tall. It's wonderful for privacy. I believe a large portion of it, with the survey pins that we found, is on our property. I would like there to be some kind of setback so that the trees are not damaged and the root systems. And for the sake of my small children, we're going from 3 neighbors to 30. I don't want people letting their dogs out, where this 5 acres is generally my kids' backyard. This is where they play. A fence needs to be up for the safety and security of my children from their animals, but also for the people that live there. I don't know these 30 neighbors. I don't want them accessing my small children. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. The next one that I have here, I'm not sure if it was the right one. It says Red Lion Parking Area wishing to speak.
It's for the text amendment.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Nope, that's fine. We'll hold that one. All right, was there anything else as far as comment? I would invite the applicant back up.
Sir, excuse me, I sent an email in saying that I wanted to speak.
Okay.
My name is Don Judd.
do we have, was that read in? So what I would ask is if you could come up, you have 4 minutes, state your name and address, you have 4 minutes. Then what I need you to do is directly afterwards, grab one of those forms and fill it out just so that we have it for the record.
Okay.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Did you wish to fill out, and had you sent an email?
I sent in an email with several questions.
And you,
Okay.
hold on just a second, Field?
The written comments are in the record. Field pulled it up.
Right.
So those written comments in the record, but.
Okay.
But he absolutely can speak.
Right,
But we-
so you
we-
could speak. You had sent an email in that had several questions, but there was no recommendation. You hadn't requested to speak for public comment, so it was just read into the record. We had that. We've read through everything. Field, how do we want to proceed on this?
They can certainly speak, but that, just know that we have received those comments.
So we have
They are
your
in the-
emails. If you do wish to speak here tonight, grab one of those forms, fill it out, and then you can come up and you have 4 minutes to be able to speak.
So do I just read my questions? I want answers to the questions.
But this is public comment, this isn't the Q&A, so you can come up and speak for 4 minutes, then the applicant will come up and then have opportunity to answer those questions, but we can't go question by question and go through it. This is public comment, so it's not,
Can I remind everybody too, we're looking at zoning. We have the 6 criteria for zoning. The annexation, a lot of stuff that's been discussed are really great discussions.
but has nothing to do with
But-
tonight.
Yeah, when it goes to council, they can weigh that as part of the annexation. We're really looking at that criteria for zoning.
So we would absolutely invite you to come up and you can ask some of those questions, but it's not necessarily a Q&A. And I know that you had talked about the number of homes. I believe that was the email, that some of the questions that you had asked. And that has nothing to do with this evening. Tonight is just simply whether we annex it, put a recommendation forth for R1 to City Council. So this is just an initial hearing. But I do absolutely invite you to come up when he's done and speak.
And I would also add that the applicant does have the staff report with the same comments, so the applicant has reviewed these comments as well.
So I would absolutely invite you if you want to. We'll start with you. Again, sir, state your name and address, and you have 4 minutes.
Okay. Do I understand it correctly that you did get my email?
That is correct.
And it's into the record?
It is into
Thank
the
you.
record, but I did not see anywhere where you wanted to speak, but now's your chance, sir.
Thank you. I apologize for that.
Not a problem.
My name is Don Judd. I live at 2864 West Grange, immediately west of the proposed one leg of this proposed project. The thing that I have concerns about here relative to zoning, the thing that I noticed is that the zoning commission has stated that one of their goals is to see that the expansion of the city is orderly. This is certainly not orderly. It surrounds Lot 66 with a high number of homes. The other thing is that you've said that high-density housing would be dumped onto improved roads, higher-level roads. Grange doesn't fit that category, and yet at least half of the traffic will end up on Grange. The improvements that Dobler has identified leave a bottleneck. They improve 330 feet at the access to Grange. They leave everything in front of 66 unimproved because they don't have the right-of-way. Then 300 feet from McGuire, they improve again, and they leave that bottleneck in the middle. That's not appropriate access for this kind of density. The other thing is that this improvement some change in design could make this appropriate for everyone. We don't have any objection. I farm the land just to the west. And we don't have any objection to the city annexing and developing if it's done consistent with the lifestyle that already exists. This is a dramatic change from 5-acre agricultural residential to 56 homes on 18 acres, dumping onto a chip-sealed road that's only recently been done. So this, and I lived in this neighborhood since 1970. I've served on the school board. Plats and this kind of work is a part of my profession. I'm retired now. But engineering, planning, and construction was what I did. This is, at best, a mediocre plan, and that's being pleasant. It should be redone if you're going to consider rezoning this area. And I appreciate you allowing me to have the time to speak.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Is it Mrs. Gibson? Yes. Okay, yes, so we have your email that's been written in, and we would more than love to have you come up, and if you want to address things, there would be the opportunity for the applicant, if he wishes to address any of those in rebuttal. But again, it's public comment, so it's not necessarily a Q&A, but we have, every commissioner did receive this and has went through and read each one of the questions. A lot of these are, again, dealing with a little bit further down the road other than annexation, but I would invite you if you want to come up and share.
A lot of my questions are,
I would have you come up, that way we can get it read into, hear it in the record rather than from the seat.
And some of the questions I may, like after the applicant does the rebuttal, I have some notes here.
Okay.
And so I may be able to address it before you guys end and start deliberation.
Okay. And again, I apologize for the confusion. I'll have you state your name and address and then.
Yeah, well, part of the problem is the notice I received said get here at 6 o'clock, and we're standing outside in the hallway thinking this is another meeting, and a gentleman came out and told us, no, this is the meeting. So I don't know what I missed. I guess you guys started early, but a lot of my questions are, we live at 2418 West Falling Star Loop. So our backyard backs up to McGuire. And I'm really concerned because I see, sorry, I'm not used to speaking in front of people, and I didn't know I was going to do that.
You're doing fine.
So, part of the problem I see is at the other end, Chase and Grange. I see what they did over there, and it's a mess. If they put in, I don't know how many homes over there, but Prairie Meadows and the Meadows are nice homes. They're on half-acre and acre lots, and you guys are going to be putting in these homes where it's, cookie-cutter homes right next to each other. I didn't catch how many homes were going to be built, but I've heard 90, and I've also heard 50-something, so I don't know which it is. And I'm also concerned about apartments, because I know a lot of times they put apartments in these developments. And I wonder if they're going to be looking into our backyard, where they're going to place these. I worry about the traffic. Let me go down my list. I really didn't even read this because I thought you had it and you'd be answering them tonight. So what is the approximate lot size for each single-family residential home? Are they like right next to each other like they are at the other end of Chase and Grange? Is that the kind of plan that you have?
Yeah, and again, this is the early stage, just dealing with the annexation. I know Mr. Manley's taking some notes, and we'll try to address those. But basically, you can just continue to ask, and we'll attempt to answer as many as possible.
Okay. Well, a big one is apartment complexes, and if so, where were they going to be located? Where will the road entrance and exits be to the housing development? Are they going to be, it sounds to me like you've already kind of talked a little bit about that it's going to be on Grange. I was wondering if it was going to be on McGuire. The street lights, where would those be located if you're going to put street lights in? McGuire's, I keep hearing that it's not a busy road, but it's a really busy road. A lot of people cut through from Prairie and from Rathdrum area to come down and come down McGuire. And it is a busy road. We've lived here for 5 years, and the traffic it's getting really bad. Will they be putting in any roundabouts like they have at Chase? I think they have one at Chase. There's one a little bit further down by where you go to the dump, I know, and I just wondered if they plan to put any more roundabouts to kind of slow the traffic down, maybe. I was concerned about how the developing the land will affect our water, irrigation, the sewer infrastructure, all of that. Are they planning for all of that? Is it going to impact us because they're adding all these other homes? What's it going to do to us? I don't know if you talked about this already, but the recreational areas and walking paths. Are they going to be putting any of those in? I heard the one gentleman, I don't know if you're the developer or what, but I heard you saying you're not going to be putting parks in, that there is a park. I think you're talking about the park in Prairie Meadows and in the Meadows. That's not sufficient. You need some park. If you're planning on putting in, whether it's 90 or 50 something homes, you need to put some parks in over there for those people too, not where they're coming over and lining our streets. We already get a lot with the soccer teams that come in for our parks.
Mrs. Gibson, 10 seconds.
And I just think that maybe could we slow down and see what the consequences and the impact of the development is actually going to be before we just continue to stockpile and build future homes.
Okay.
So, that's it.
All
I
right.
wasn't prepared to talk, I'm sorry.
You did a wonderful job, and we'll try to address some of those. Thank you very much. I still see people in the back. Again, normally we would go through this, we would stop. So this is the last chance. If any of you do wish to speak in regard to this, make sure that you get your paperwork and turn it in as soon as possible. Yeah, you can turn it in right here. All right. Not wishing to speak in opposition, I want to keep current zoning agriculture and 5 acres. In opposition, Sherry Bollner, do you wish to speak?
I just have a brief statement.
Okay, why don't you come up and state your name and address, and then you can share that statement.
I've been here 11 years. I live at the corner of McGuire and North Howell Road in Prairie Meadows.
Would you state your address and your name, just so that we have it for the record, too?
Sorry, Sherry
Oh, you're fine.
Bolander, 2277 North Howell Road
Perfect, thank you.
in Post Falls. And I'm opposed to the annexation, just due to all the problems it would bring with increased housing density, traffic, and just the strain on the services that we have. The traffic in the 11 years I've been there on McGuire, it was a fairly quiet road, and it's just constant. And we have big trucks, and I don't know, I know this isn't the appropriate time to ask, but I don't know what's in store for McGuire Road. Is that going to be 4-lane road? Does that mean that the people that live in Prairie Meadows, would it take some of their property, their existing property? I just think it's too much too fast as far as the developments go. That's just about all I have to say.
All right.
Like everybody else, I hate to see so much traffic. We already have a tremendous amount.
Right.
And
Okay.
the change, and like you say, if you plan it, maybe not have so many homes on such few acres and implement some parks,
All right.
but anyway, that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. In opposition, not wishing to speak, Gail Randall. Want to keep rural and agricultural zoning on the west side of McGuire Road. No more high-density zoning or pocket subdivisions. Gentlemen in the back, are you guys filling out for this particular piece?
I've already spoken.
Yes, you have. Gentlemen, are you wishing to speak on this one? Okay, all right. Okay, then at this time, we would invite the applicant up. No, wait, I'm just kidding. Come up.
Gordon Dobler Engineering. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I can address some of these comments. Let's talk about stormwater.
Mr. Dolber, before you do, I want to make sure, just because I don't want to make sure there's any miscommunication, the way that a hearing works is that we have staff come up, they give the information so that everybody can hear it. The applicant comes up, and then we have opportunity for the community to come up and speak, either in favor, neutral, or against, followed by the applicant coming up for rebuttal, but there is no additional time for questions from the audience or more questions. This is kind of his rebuttal. We have questions for staff, and then we move on, but I just want to make sure that everybody understood that. Please continue, sir.
Thank you. And, and we say rebuttal, it's like I'm arguing. I'm really not. I'm just answering some of the questions, providing information for curious minds that want to know. Stormwater, we're all concerned about the aquifer. All of us are, whether we live, develop, whatever we do, because all of us get our water from there. So stormwater treatment has been addressed 25 years ago, 30 years ago. The region, in conjunction with even Spokane, because they're part of the aquifer too, came up with minimum stormwater treatment requirements from all new development, and we've all been adhering to those for that long. And basically consists of all the stormwater from the impervious surfaces that's created with new development goes to grassed areas that are designed to take that and treat it, and then they're injected back into the aquifer. And all of the agencies, Panhandle, all of DEQ, not only in Idaho but in Washington, have agreed that this is the minimum standard. And Panhandle's been monitoring the aquifer. In fact, they just did a recent presentation. The city of Hayden said that our aquifer is in great shape. It's not seen any further contamination or degradation. So the stormwater treatment methods are working in protecting our drinking water. Come back to, impacts. That's a concern, obviously, of, all new development brings impact with it. So what the cities do, including Post Falls, is they forecast out and say, if these areas develop, what are the impacts going to be regarding parks, streets, and all that. So they forecast future traffic on the streets. They forecast the need for fire services, for street widening, for parks. And they start with a baseline that's some years ago that says this is our undeveloped condition. Any new improvements that are required because of all this development has to be paid for by development. That's the basis of impact fees. So what happens is, as we develop, each lot has been allocated a certain amount of fees that are collected to pay for these additional improvements. They don't all happen with that one development, but the money gets accrued, and as they meet milestones for, these regional improvements, then those regional improvements are done by the city. So it's thousands of dollars per lot that's paid to contribute towards these regional and local improvements, be it parks. I think I said earlier that it's like $1,200, $1,300 per lot that the city collects to buy additional parkland, and that's the solution. Not every development dedicates it, but they do pay towards purchase and development of new parklands. It's the same with street. I don't know what that number is, but each lot pays a fee to not only address the local but the regional traffic needs. This development, in addition to that, and every development, improves the streets that they abut. The bottleneck on Grange, I understand that it won't all be improved, but remember that Grange now exists with two 14-foot wide lanes. That will still happen. That won't decrease. We would widen it in front of our improvements to have wider, obviously, anticipating, again, the future need, but we would still have adequate capacity as it exists today. Some of these from the last lady really aren't part of the annexation. We've looked at, how many homes. I don't know that that's part of the zoning, but the lot sizes that we've looked at are well in excess of the minimum allowed by the R1 zone. A number of homes would be less than what would be allowed by the R1 zone, I can say that. Intersection at Grange and McGuire, I believe that would continue to be a stop-controlled intersection. Maybe staff has got some long-term plans for that. I'm not aware of those. Water and sewer impacts, the water and sewer adequate. They have plenty of capacity. One of the things that we're required to do, FYI, is we approach the different jurisdictions. In this case, it'd be East Green Acres for water and the city for sewer, and we ask them, do you have capacity to serve this without degradation to your existing service? We have to have that question answered before we can even come to request annexation, and that's, we get letters from both to say, yes, we've looked at it, we have the capacity. In some cases, we're required to upsize to meet fire flows, to loop, redundancy, reliable systems. Typically for water, that's the case, and it will be here. We'll be required to upsize mains in Grange, where we front, and loop through and provide redundancy for this development as well as the surrounding area. I think that's about it.
Commissioners, questions for the applicant? No? Thank you, sir. Mr. Manley, do you want to address, got a couple pages sitting there?
Yeah, I had some sloppy notes and then rewrote them so I can actually relay it. So the one of the issues that came up was Panhandle Health being noticed. I apologize if in my PowerPoint presentation Panhandle Health wasn't listed in a staff report. They are listed and they were notified.
Okay.
Okay. Comment wasn't received. There was a statement about no foundations for housing. Per International Building Code, they do have to require foundations. So there would be foundations with the housing. The R1 zoning district does not allow high-density housing or medium density.
John, will you define that, please, for the audience, what a high density and medium density is?
Yeah, typically your medium density, I'll start from low to high. So we have our R1S zoning district, which is 1 acre lots. Then it goes to your R1 zoning district, which is up to currently 5 dwelling units per acre.
And that's single family only, right?
It's single family, 1 residential unit on a minimum lot size. Currently, the R1 has 6,500 square feet for the minimum lot. Then you have your medium R2 zoning district that can allow, it does allow single family, duplexes, twin homes, and multifamily, but they're not asking for medium density, and it can range anywhere from generally 3 dwelling units per acre in the R2 to probably 12 dwelling units per acre. Generally, there's some exceptions with that. Then you go into the high density R3, and that's your generally 12 to 18 dwelling units per acre. With the R1 zoning district and the minimum lot size of 6,500 square feet, there's also a question of how many homes. From my experience here looking at subdivisions, after you give a right-of-way and internal street circulations, it's really difficult to meet the minimum lot size and get above 4 dwelling units per acre. How subdivisions typically achieve higher than 4 is through a PUD, where they grant open space and they actually request a smaller lot width of 50 feet or 40 feet, and then that's how they get to the 5. Also with PUDs, and I know this is all a lot of stuff, I'm just trying to explain the zoning here in Post Falls a bit. With PUDs, we require them to meet the minimum base density, and so that's how zoning and PUDs kind of work together. So apartments, they wouldn't be building apartments because it's not an R3 zoning district or an R2, it's R1. We have 2 low-density zoning districts that we consider, and that's both the R1S and R1 as being low density for properties that are within the city of Post Falls. I heard him. The question was if I can explain the foundations again. It was cited that houses don't have foundation. There may have been previous eras, houses constructed with substandard or foundations that don't meet current building code. But current building code, they would have to meet the IBC's requirements or IRC for
That's International
building code or residential code
Okay.
for the foundations. There was a question about wanting to know about entrance and exits. Those are generally dealt with at time of subdivisions. The City of Post Falls have minimum spacing standards for the road classifications and the type of developments, and that generally is determined at the time of subdivision and approved at that time with an application. parks, I talked a little bit about PUDs and whatnot. So with subdivisions, the way it's set up, the city collects impact fees. Those impact fees goes towards parks, public safety, and streets. So it gets real tricky if you're requiring parks with subdivisions and not being considered double dipping, because we're also taking a park impact fees. Therefore, we don't require parks with our subdivisions. What does happen, though, is we have zoning districts and other methods, be it a PUD or a mixed zoning districts. A PUD requires 10% open space. Generally speaking, someone that goes down a PUD route says, I'll give up 10% of the land, but in exchange, I want increased density. Once again, I have to refer to earlier about how that kind of works. So they go get up closer to 5 dwelling units per acre, so in an R1, but they're giving up 10% of their land for open space. The mixed zoning districts we established, they have a 7% open space requirements. Once again, if someone's going to do that, what they're getting in exchange is variability in housing product, which then generally does increase density a bit, but creates more of a different built environment within the city. Rights of way on existing property, we get the rights of way with the development annexation. If you're not annexing or not part of it, generally we're not getting the rights of way without purchasing it. So therefore, if you're adjacent to this, they're not going to go take property away from you at this point in time. There were some, I did everything I could answer. I did acknowledge the fact that in my presentation I referred to it as paved, and I was informed that it was chip sealed prior to this going to the annexation decision, because it's not really a zoning matter, this chip seal.
Right.
It will be a matter for part of annexation, and I'll try to get the truth of that for when it goes and it gets presented before city council. That kind of brings the value of these public meetings. It gives us the opportunity to hear things that then can improve the process. There were some items that I'm not going to comment on, potentially Rob could if you guys desire, that I took notes on, and that was streetlights, roundabout, stop control, and traffic. So if you have questions along those lines, Rob is present to answer.
I mean, again, dealing with the annexation, is there any clarification at this point? Commissioners? None? Okay.
No.
So anything else?
That's it. That was my
Okay.
notes.
Okay. So again, commissioners, so that we are clear, this is simply looking that do we make a recommendation to annex this particular piece of property and make that recommendation to city council with the low density, which would be classified as low density of R1. So commissioners, any questions for staff or anyone else before we close this out?
So we
None?
are making a recommendation on annexation?
No.
Yeah, it's,
No.
I would clarify
Yes,
that.
please do.
All right.
It would be the recommendation for the zoning
Zoning.
upon
Oh, yeah.
annexation.
Yes. Any other questions? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and close the hearing out. Commissioner comments? Anyone wish to go?
Well, I think just what we touched on is that it becomes confusing that this item is shown on the agenda as an annexation, when really what has come before us is a zoning recommendation. Really, the Planning and Zoning Commissioner no longer gets to have any input or make any recommendations to the annexations themselves. That happens all with City Council. So what we have to look at is, if possibly that parcel is annexed, is that the proper zoning, or what is the proper zoning designation for that particular parcel? So it's even confusing to me, because I can't consider the annexation only appropriate zoning. With that said, I think, when it comes down to really a few things, does this maintain and enhance resident quality of life? I think an R1S would probably do that more so than an R1. There's already R1S across the street, And, you know, we have in the city of Post Falls, from the city staff notes, it looks like we've got 48% R1, only 4.19 RS. And, you know, maybe R1S, some could argue, isn't in demand, but I personally think it is. So, to me, it would be a better fit as a zoning designation.
Anyone else?
I have to say something. And I want to reiterate what Nancy said, because I know it can be frustrating for you folks. You feel like what you're coming down here and it's falling on deaf ears. But just to reiterate, we're not deciding whether this property is zoned this evening. We're only deciding if it does become zoned, do we think it should be, the applicant's asking for R1, which is what Prairie Meadows is zoned. And so they're asking for the same zoning as Prairie Meadows. And so do we believe, the question is, am I right on that?
It's R1S. Prairie
No,
Meadows is R1S.
No, not the Meadows, Prairie Meadows.
Prairie Meadows is R1S.
They're both.
with the-
East of McGuire, they're R1S.
Okay, and so,
Meadows and Prairie Meadows are R1S.
okay, and so that's what we're hearing. And your questions about what's gonna be there, how small are the lots gonna be, those are all density issues that would come from the subdivision hearing that will entail if the city council decides to annex the property. So, Meadows on the 1 acre lots is R1S, I can understand that, which is kind of to the north. And immediately adjacent is Prairie Meadows, which is half acre lots, which would I think would be R1.
There was a PUD.
variance on it.
There was a PUD there.
Okay,
So it was R1S with a PUD.
Deliberating.
R1S with a PUD, yeah.
I see. Okay.
Anyone else?
So with regards to the zoning and whether or not the request is, whether it meets the comprehensive plan, I think the city and the applicant gave a pretty good comprehensive plan analysis where transitional zoning, R1S, is appropriate in the transitional comp plan designation. The street classifications being adjacent to, and I think McGuire's an arterial. It may be a major collector or minor arterial, but one or the other. It's a larger street. So that's appropriate. As John talked about a little bit, even higher density is appropriate against that kind of a street classification, but that's not the case. They're not asking for that tonight. You know, when we talk about, this is one of the hard things when it comes to growth. This is it's a little bit of a catch-22. When cities grow and have large lot subdivisions, so 1 acre lot, half acre lot, 3/4 acre lot, 2 acre lots, 5 acre lots, the demand for that property, if that's the only thing that's on the market, that's what gets gobbled up. And so when you start chewing up the prairie at a rate of, you know, the rate of people moving here isn't changing. So what the result, if we go with large lots, is that the prairie gets gobbled up faster because the number of people moving here is going to be the same. So when it comes to, you know, if you stand up on the top of Sears Hill and look out across the prairie and you see all the rooftops across Montrose and then Prairie Meadows, there's no real visible difference if you look at the density out there from the 1 acre, half acre lots to the R1 zoning in Montrose. What does happen though is that the open spaces in the prairie get gobbled up and 1 acre lots never get redeveloped. So, or if they do, it's 50, 80, 100 years from now that they will, when all the open space is gone. So if, as part of our comprehensive plan is a goal to promote the preservation of open space in the prairie, and by recommending a zoning of R1, I think that keeps the prairie and the open spaces in the prairie from being gobbled up faster. And it's, we've been in a constant state of growth up here probably since 1970s, maybe even earlier than that. It's slowed, it's sped up, slowed down, it's cyclic, but we're in a state of growth, and I see that continuing in the future, and so I think R1 is the appropriate zone.
James?
I mean, I could go for R1 or R1S. I don't, like the way this is designed, but, it's the right of that one property owner not to be included in this, just like it's the right of the other property owner to be included in it. So everybody's within their rights there. One thing that we had talked about, I think in the last meeting, is talking about, because the prairie keeps coming up, there is, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's like 1,400 acres of prairie land out there that will not be developed anytime soon. So, we will be keeping the green space, but at the same time, when we have these new developments, if it's right, they will have parks and green spaces. For this one, I think it does meet the comp plan and everything. The transportation's there. There's no red flags that come up as far as water or street classifications, and the improvements will be there. Would I like to see the improvements the full length of Grange? Sure, who wouldn't? And maybe that will come in time. But this is on the edge of the city, and it will kind of get expanded out, and hopefully it will fill in. So I'd be good with R1 or R1S, honestly.
Okay. Kevin?
No, I think they've touched, all the commissioners touched on what I think that it meets the comprehensive plan, it meets everything. And what I'd like to touch on is the comments on the park. The park on Howell is a city park. I heard it referred to as ours and this and that. That was, I built a house on Howell, and I had that same contention years ago when that park was new. And then on one Sunday, 400 kids showed up, and it's, they're riding their bikes in your front yard, but that's what you buy for. It's neighborhood. You buy for a neighborhood. I mean, everybody comes from somewhere else. I'm from Vegas, Yakima Valley, and it's all grown. But it's how to manage it, and we can't manage it. Like he said, we can't manage it if we put all 1 acre lots out there. That's bad management, and I feel your pain. And you need you guys to show up at the city council meeting and tell them the same thing. We appreciate you coming. It helps John, helps the city, helps the staff work it a little bit more if they miss something. So your input is valued. It's just, this is just one of those spots where we can't do anything with a lot of the information,
We can't take any more public comment from the seats. So I would say at this point, one of the conversations was the enhanced quality of life, internet speeds, and those things. Like it or not, as some of these get developed and are brought into the city, I think there is going to be more opportunity for those kind of things. I think in today's market, R1S, I don't know, to me, it doesn't make sense. R1 seems to be. But again, this is a recommendation that we're sending forth to City Council. So it's not heavy density, it's not high density, it's not even medium density. It's low density, R1, single-family homes, and that if it was approved to be annexed, that would be our recommendation, or at least that's my thought. Again, okay, I'll clarify, but I just want to make sure that we understand. There is a time. I think a lot of times we get caught up in the social media to where we can just type in and make comments whenever we want to do that. That doesn't exist in this room. Right. I'm just saying is that you have those 4 minutes for your comment, and then we can address it. As more generally more services come in when you have those types of pieces that are brought into the city. Some of us live in subdivisions where Ziply or TDS or Intermax has come in and put in fiber. So I don't necessarily think that it moving into R1 is going to cause internet speeds to be slower, is going to cause your water pressure to be lower. That's not necessarily the case. I appreciate it. So at this point, I would look for a motion.
I would move to recommend approval of ANNX-0006-2021, the project name here, the Kukla and Kelly annexation with a recommended zoning of R1, finding that it meets the approval criteria in the City of Post Falls Municipal Code 18-16 or .16.010 and 18.20.100 as outlined as we've spoken in our deliberations here with the reasoning that we've given, and direct staff to prepare a reasoned decision to that effect.
A second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any further comment? Call for vote.
Hamby,
No.
Bauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Stephenson.
Yes.
Okay, 5-minute recess. Field? How are you? It's rolling again.
Thanks, John. I appreciate your time.
All right, now that we're back in, we will go ahead and open up the second public hearing, Nicholas Commercial Center, first edition.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Laura Jones, Associate Planner with the City of Post Falls, here tonight to introduce the Nicholson Commercial Center First Edition subdivision. The property owner is the Solomon Foundation, and the applicant is Olson Engineering. The requested action tonight is to approve approval to subdivide 4.75 acres into 19 duplex lots along Highway 41, determining that it meets the requirements of the Post Falls Code. The project is located west of Highway 41 between East 16th Avenue and East Horsehaven Avenue. You can see it here as indicated on the map. The parcel is currently vacant with no significant topology or vegetation that would hinder development. The water provider is Ross Point Water District, and the City of Post Falls will be the sewer provider. The parcel is currently zoned Community Commercial Services, or CCS. All of the adjacent parcels and parcels within close proximity of this site are also zoned CCS. Residential uses are allowed within the CCS zone through a special use permit at densities permitted by the high-density multifamily residential R3 zone. And this did receive a special use permit back in March. It was approved under USC 0004-2020. I believe that should say, no, I think that's right, it is 2020. It was applied for in 2020, came before you in 2021 in March. Currently, the Nicholson Commercial Center is directly to the east. That was approved at the end of March this year. That consisted of 11 commercial lots. In the red there is the Nicholson First, which is why we're here tonight. It's our subject property. To the west or northwest is the Post Falls Food Court. That is currently in review with our community development, planning, engineering, and building divisions. We're, I think, on our second or third review on that, so it is in the works. Directly west is Genesis Prep Academy. This is a proposed development, although it is not received we haven't received a formal application for it. We did have a pre-application back in October for it, so it is a highly likely project coming forward to you in the near future. Or excuse me, it won't come before you, it'll just go through site plan review. And then directly west of that proposed school is the Real Life Ministries. So the applicant is proposing 19 lots with 38 units at a density of 8 dwelling units per acre. This is the Nicholson Commercial Center subdivision, again, which was brought to you in March and approved. Again, it's the 11 commercial lots. The 2 larger lots there that you see are lots 10 and 11 and are subject tonight. For reference, on this map, north is to the right of the screen. Looking at, again, Nicholson Commercial Center, lots 10 and 11, and just highlighting it with the proposed plat overlay to give you a better reference. And now zooming in to just lots 10 and 11, this is the proposed plan. You can see that there is private roads to access this site. Main accesses will be off of Horsehaven Avenue to the north, 16th to the south. Genesis Road is a private road. And then also that southern access entry is private, giving egress to the proposed school there. That was conditioned in the Nicholson Nicholson Commercial Center subdivision. And then there's also another egress to the duplexes on the northern side. Minimum lot width required by code is 50 feet. The applicant is proposing a minimum of 85 feet. The minimum lot size required by code is 7,200 square feet, and the minimum proposed lot size is roughly 9,500 square feet for this project. Looking at the subdivision review criteria, The first is that definite provision has been made for a water supply system that is adequate in terms of quantity and quality for the type of subdivision proposed. This site is served by Ross Point Water District, and the applicant did provide a will-serve letter from them, and they have the capacity and willingness to serve the site as presented. Second is adequate provision has been made for a public sewage system, and that the existing municipal system can accommodate the proposed sewer flows. The city's water reclamation system has the capacity, and the city is willing to provide sanitary sewer services. Third criteria is that proposed streets are consistent with the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. City engineering staff provided comment in the staff report stating that the proposed layout accommodates connectivity and will not have a negative impact on the local transportation network, and that the private roads that are proposed exceed our minimum design standards. The fourth is that all areas of the proposed subdivision which may involve soil or topographical conditions presenting hazards have been identified, and that the proposed uses of these areas are compatible with such conditions. There are no identified soil or topographical conditions that present hazards. Fifth criteria is that the area proposed for subdivision is zoned for the proposed use, and the use conforms to other requirements found in this code. The subdivision is within the city limits of Post Falls, and as previously noted, it did undergo a special use permit for this use to allow for the CCS to accommodate the residential use. Lastly, the developer has made adequate plans to ensure that the community will bear no more than its fair share of cost to provide services by paying fees, furnishing land, or providing other mitigation measures for off-site impacts to streets, parks, and other public facilities within the community. This is addressed through our impact fees, so at the time of building permits, the applicant will be paying impact fees to offset those impacts to parks, public safety, and streets. This is the list of agencies that are notified of the project and given a chance to comment. Of these agencies, 4 responded. Post Falls Police Department, Post Falls Highway District, and Kootenai County Fire and Rescue were all neutral. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality gave us general comments that will be applicable at the time of construction. I can take any questions.
Questions for Laura? Anyone?
I do. I have a question regarding the street. So you said there's going to be they'll have access onto Horsehaven and 16th, but obviously there's no roadway right now between 16th and Horsehaven or connected to this particular parcel. And then I don't see anything in your conditions where the road has to be completed. So how are we?
I can let Rob Paulus address this, but I believe that is part of the Nicholson Commercial Center subdivision, so the subdivision that was approved back in March.
Okay, it's part of the subdivision agreement with the.
Yeah.
And I can, the
Okay.
special use permit has that as a condition. that
Okay,
the
got it. All
Backage
right.
road be built.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and then I had one other thing. Was there a condition from the water district?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, this maybe was looking at a different one, not a. Okay, I'll look at that. I'll come back to it if I.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you. We'll invite the applicant up.
Good evening, Jeremy Terzulli. I reside in Hauser, Idaho. Work as a project manager for Olson Engineering based here in Post Falls. Laura did a great job, and this is phase 3 of a project now we've brought before you guys several times in several different meetings. Just to recap, Nicholson Commercial Center was the entirety of the site. We got our approval for that subdivision, which included the backage road connecting Horsehaven and 16th. The pad sites along Highway 41, that plan set is in and is in review. We're working through those plans. Yes, the condition of the backage road before this, that's in place. We're hoping to have those plans back and move to construction of Nicholson Commercial Center within the next month or so. Another one of the conditions would have been that little spur road to the new school site. Ironically, the builder on half of these duplex, if we get approval, sits on the board for that school. So we've got good communication happening between those parties. Everybody's working well together. And again, this is just sort of a recap. We were very transparent from the very beginning of this. We reserved these sites here. We came forth with the special use permit, which was approved. And now I know some of the questions on that approval was, well, we could get a higher density, but as John had pointed out, the special use permit for the R2 was only for the duplex sites. And so here is the final plan showing the duplex sites well above the minimum lot size required. And we respectfully hope that you'll consider everything and offer approval of the subdivision. And I am here for any questions.
I just have one clarification. I want to make sure that Genesis Road is a public road. Is that correct?
Genesis, yeah, that's the backage road that
Okay.
will parallel 41. The
And they're-
private road was to create access to the school parking lot. The fire department very cordially asked us to coordinate with them because they were going to need another point of ingress, egress for their parking lot. So we worked together with them. And then all of these duplex lots will front a future private road to be named.
So that future private road is where all the access will go for these lots?
No direct access onto 16th or Horsehaven from this.
Will there be any direct access from the lots to Genesis?
Yes. No. Actually, they all front this backage road. We have the little spur back onto Genesis as per fire requirement.
Okay.
But yes, they will all access the private road. So in essence, the bottom of the screen, so to speak, those are backyards facing that backage road.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Anyone? Nope. No? Okay. Thank you very much. Public comment. Those in favor?
None.
Those neutral?
None.
Those opposed?
None.
So there'd be, I'm not supposed to use the word rebuttal, but if there's anything else that you want to share. All right. Any questions for staff?
Nope.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and close it out. Obviously, I know we saw this in March. We've kind of progressively walked through this in relatively short fashion, so it should be familiar with everyone. Any comment?
In the interest of making a record and deliberation for Mr. Field over there, it appears to meet all the criteria for subdivision as laid out in our subdivision code, given the fact that it has a special use permit that allows duplexes in that zone. And so subdivision review criteria, there's adequate water, there's adequate sewer. The fact that they're private streets, but they're accessing on Genesis Avenue, which I think is a frontage road, which makes it at least a minor collector, means that it meets the comprehensive plan transportation element. There isn't any, it's flat out there, and there isn't any, to our knowledge, any problems with the soils out there. And then based on the fact that they'll pay impact fees and they're building all their frontage, there shouldn't be any undue impact on the community.
Okay. Anything else to add? Hearing none, then I guess at this point I would entertain a motion.
We're using these new ones.
Go for it.
I'll move to approve the Nicholson Commercial Center, first edition subdivision, or file name SUBD 0006 2020. Finding that it meets the approval criteria of the Post Falls Municipal Code 17.12.060H as outlined in our deliberation. Reasoning as as Ray just stated, and, we've seen this one a couple times, subject to the conditions, I think it's 1 through 8, if I'm correct, contained in the staff report, and direct staff to prepare a reasoned decision.
Second.
We've got a very well put motion and a second. Call for a vote.
Stephenson.
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Schlauer.
Yes.
Hamby.
Yes.
All right. We'll move right along. I know Ethan is excited to get up here, so we will go ahead and open up our third public hearing, Boyd annexation.
Excited as I'll ever be. Evening, Commissioners. I'm Ethan Porter, here one of the planners with the city, here to present the Boyd annexation, case file ANNX-5-2021. We're looking at the owners and the applicant. You see the owners there as Don Boyd and the applicant is Ace Solutions. Together they are requesting the Planning and Zoning Commission to review the annexation request for an R1 zoning on approximately 12 acres and make that recommendation to City Council. Here you can see the project hatched in red. There it is north of East Bogey Drive and south of Bluegrass, south of Corbin Meadows, so it's kind of tucked into this little county island. So you can see that here. Basically, the parcel is a large lot residential home currently within Kootenai County. There's no significant topography or vegetation issues that cause negative effects on the site that have been flagged or that city staff has seen or been presented any issues there. Water provider for this area is Ross Point Water District, and the sewer will be provided by the city of Post Falls. This slide kind of gives you an identification of kind of what's around, what's been approved, what other subdivisions are next to it. And so there you can see highlighted in yellow the Boyd annexation that we're currently discussing. North is Corbin Meadows. They have two, I believe, 10-acre parcels there that they are currently been approved and under development, so to speak. They have, I believe, subdivision construction plans in, and they're in the process of getting that squared away. North of Corbin Meadows, the Brennan annexation, which was recently recommended for approval to City Council for R1 zoning as well, is just north of Corbin Meadows. It's kind of hard to see my arrow there because it got cut off a little bit, but it's kind of in the middle of Corbin Meadows, directly north. And then to the west of Boyd annexation, you have Jacobs Run, and then south you have the Renly Estates, which you can see there. So those are all R1 subdivisions, or at least requested R1 zoning if they haven't been annexed in yet, such as Brennan annexation. Kind of gives you an idea. Here's a zoning map. You can kind of see that a little bit more clear that to the north you have Corbin Meadows, those two parcels there, and of the hatched black, which is the subject property, and then to the west you have Jacobs Run. South you have the Renly Estates subdivision as well. And then obviously the white is county, and then in the the southeast you have that red, and the pink, which is red is community commercial services, pink is limited commercial. So here you can see this is looking northeast at the project location from Bogey Drive. It's pretty flat, pretty open, not a lot going on. And then directly kind of west, like I mentioned, to Jacobs Run, that's kind of their development, them building out those homes. And then looking east, directly down Bogey Drive, you see, again, north of Bogey Drive which is the left of the screen. It's just open, not a lot going on. And then south of that road, which is to the right, you have Renly Estates that they're constructing as well. Kind of gives you an idea of what's out there. We look at the review criteria now, the six review criteria, the first one being consistent with the future land use map. I'll show that in the upcoming slide. And then we look also at consistency within the goals and policies found with the comprehensive plan. Housing has been a discussion, so there's another R1 subdivision. It would provide that housing. It secures that use for these parcels. And then also with that is, I mentioned earlier county island, so this would be filling in that county island, which is one of the main points within the comprehensive plan, that it encourages those infill developments of those county islands, so this would support that aspect as well. Looking at the third one, review criteria, you're looking at considerations for street classification, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, and geographic or natural features. Most of it's described within the staff report, but engineering and city staff have looked at the street classification for Bogey Drive, as well as traffic patterns that could come about from an R1 zone. And then future land uses I'll cover in the future or in the next slide, but kind of looking at the traffic and street, there weren't many comments or issues that were addressed, no negative impacts that staff has found from this zoning request of R1. And so here you can see the future land use map. The yellow is low density residential. That's what they're proposing. It's not any medium or high density residential they're proposing, and it's surrounded by future land use designations of low density residential. So, which is pretty, which is what we see from Corbin Meadows, Jacobs Run, and Renly Estates as well. Looking at the fourth and sixth review criteria, which are not applicable, it deals with commercial and industrial zoning. So then for we look at number 5, which is basically lower density residential zoning, which is typically assigned from higher urban activities and higher uses and impacts around that. So which this is not near any of those. I mean, there is a school to the west, Greens Ferry, right off Greens Ferry there, but that is not a high urban activity. Here you can see the agencies that it was routed to for comment, and of these agencies, what we received back were from Post Falls Police Department. They remain neutral. Post Falls Highway District had no comment. Kootenai County Fire and Rescue, they remain neutral, and then what you've seen as of late, Department of Environmental Equality basically has just construction general comments during that development phase. So I would entertain any questions, and I would remind that the motion tonight is just to recommend the zoning, either approval with conditions, or deny the request. So that is your kind of motion that you're looking for tonight. So if you got any staff questions, I will entertain those.
Any questions regarding this recommendation?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring the applicant up.
Good evening. I'm Nick Ebner from ACE Solutions, 609 North Calgary Court here in Post Falls. It's good to see you guys. I had my first public meeting here last time on Zoom. Wasn't here, so I get to see you for the first time. Thank you very much, Ethan, for that presentation. We agree with the staff report. There's not too much for us to add. I'd like to point out, as Ethan did, that we are in a little bit of a county island here. We've got city properties to the north, south, and to the west, are all located within the city. We're kind of in a little bit of an island here, and so if we are annexed in, we will get to the privilege of improving Bogey along and get that closer to being improved all the way throughout from Greens Ferry to, I believe that is Chase? Cecil, thank you. Wrong C. There's a minor concern. There is a water line that runs right around down the middle of the property from a small association, I believe it's the Prairie Water Association. It's the association that currently provides water to the subject site. When that property develops, we will work with them, of course, to provide an easement. We may need to move the line a little bit, but we are well aware of that. As an aside, ACE Solutions is also working with the Brennans to the north, as Ethan mentioned, and Nate Brennan sits on the board of the Prairie Water Association, so we have good communication with them, and we should be able to work that out. And when we do get annexed in, Ross Point will be the water provider, and so we are well aware that Mr. Boyd will have to surrender his water rights to them. Let's see. Thank you very much. That's all I have for tonight.
Any questions for applicant?
I just have one question. The water line you're talking about, that's coming from the water district to your property?
Yes, there is a little, there's a little teeny tiny little lot up to the north on Bluegrass. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, the well
right
house.
Here. Oh, I ruined it. This little teeny tiny lot, I believe, is the pump house for that Prairie Water Association. So yeah, there's a line that runs, I don't believe it runs directly south, but it does, there's one that runs, and I know we are also the engineers for Corbin's Meadows, which is that one to the north. And so we're dealing with that on multiple fronts. There's a line that runs, I don't.
But your line, does that line service some other people in the water district?
It does. It services other people, yeah. So we're not going to get rid of it because it's still in use, and it will still be after we are annexed in, and after we are all done with the construction, it'll still be in use from other properties beyond that. So we're going to keep that in service as best we can, and be able to use that, or provide easements as we need be to keep that there. So, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Public comment. Those, neither way. Okay. Way to beat me to the punch then. So there would be no need for return comment. So, commissioners, any questions for staff? Anybody else at this point before we close it out?
I don't think so.
Vicki? Oh, I thought you were getting ready to ask one. No?
No,
Oh.
no, I'm good. I'm good
All
on
right.
this.
All right. We'll go ahead and close it out. I'm not picking on you, but Vicki, do you have anything? Do you want to share?
Nancy?
Or, well, I'm sorry, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm Nancy.
Easily confused.
Sorry.
No, actually, I mean, I think that an R1 zoning designation there makes sense. That's what's all around it. I think, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Sorry, Nancy.
that's
Rojas?
I've got a question here. Would it be appropriate to have under the conditions something regarding that easement for the water line that goes to the other people? Is that appropriate? To the other members of the water district?
You can certainly propose conditions.
I'm surprised they're not here. They're a
Awesome.
pretty vocal group.
That might be something that's probably more appropriate for a subdivision condition.
Rather than
Because
annexation.
annexation and zoning doesn't change the fact that there's a water line there or what they're
Yeah.
going to do with it. So if they come back for subdivision, that'd be probably appropriate then.
Yeah, okay.
Kevin?
Nope. Yeah, just, it's a donut hole, filling in the donut hole. It's one of those things that started probably, 6, 7 years ago, these little annexations of 5 and 10s, and they're filling in quickly. So it's good to see it gets the city services and the roads through there, all up to standard. Bogey Drive used to be a dirt road. Now it'll be mostly paved. So those are good things. And it meets the requirements of our comp plan. Comp plan says we should look at annexations that are infill first. This is one of them. And it also says that R1 is an appropriate zone for that. So I think the requested annexation meets comp plan goals and policies and the other criteria for zoning.
James, anything to add?
No, the only thing I would add is, the development out there kind of shows you how it may look like, oh, you're just annexing this, this, and this. But then once everything starts coming together, all the pieces coming together, all the streets start connecting, and then it looks like it should have been there, all developed at once, even though it might have been developed over 5 years. So this is a good example of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because as these little 5-acre and 10-acre chunks develop, these are all Post Falls irrigated tracts or McGuire irrigated tracts or all those things that as they redevelop, it all, with good connectivity that planning staff does with these subdivisions, they all look like at the end of the day, they end up looking like one big, nice neighborhood. So.
Okay. Seems like it makes sense, so I would look for a motion at this time.
I would move to recommend approval of the Boyd annexation file number ANNX 0005-2021 Finding that it meets the approval criteria in Post Falls Municipal Code 18.16.010 and 18.20.100 as outlined in our deliberations. And direct staff to prepare a zoning recommendation. For R1. Thank you. Got it. Right at the end.
There we go.
I second.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Call for vote.
Hampi,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Stephenson.
Yes.
Okay. This will move us on to go ahead and open up the Green Meadow zone change. John to present.
Getting older doesn't make it any easier getting out of that chair.
I thought the chair was making all those pops and snaps.
So yes, the Green Meadow zone change, case file RZNE 4 2021, the applicant is Olson Engineering, representing the owner, River City Properties LLC. They're requesting to rezone approximately 1 acre, just over 1 acre, from the medium density multifamily residential R2 zoning to the requested community commercial CCS zoning district. As you see here, the red hatched area is looking like it's in the middle of a field, but this is actually being developed. There's roads out there currently, and they're currently processing the platting of this area. This location is about halfway between Greens Ferry and Cecil, south of Prairie. You see here that they're mostly developing as R2. The intent is single family. That is an option within the R2 zoning district. It was formerly some agricultural lands. The Ross Point Water District would provide the water service, with the city of Post Falls providing the sewer. You can see here the road layout that's currently out there, and you can see or mostly out there. You can see currently what I have highlighted is this was an area of that project that was zoned CCS already. What they're proposing is to, on the west side of that road, do some additional CCS that equates to the 1.3 acres. So they're losing 4 R2 lots in exchange for potentially 1 large CCS. So in this, we'd be looking at the zone change criteria. Seen a lot of that this evening, but is it consistent with the comp plan? It's future land use map, the goals and policies in the comp plan. We're looking at street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, geographic or natural features on this site. Looking at it, geographical natural features, it's being developed. There's, so it's, that is the new feature, is developable lands. Street classification, traffic patterns. You've seen in the staff report a detailed analysis of the compatibility of the proposed use. It was compatible with R2, and it's still compatible with the proposed CCS. Looking at the future land use map, this area is the transitional area. You also see here the red hatch. There is a nearby potential for a commercial uses within that commercial activity node. To the upper right, you see some business commercial with some low density residential south of this site. Here you see the existing zoning in this area, the R2, the hatched area, the proposed location of this. To the upper right, that red diagonally hatched, is the technology mix zoning district. You also have additional R1 to the east and south. The transitional area, once again, it points to looking at these focus areas as the different regions. There's some different policy points in other areas of the community. We're looking at And here's where you see focus provisions for multifamily, commercial, and tech uses near higher classified roadways. And this is Prairie Avenue would fall in line with this. Also, it goes on to say focus provisions for commercial uses along arterial collector streets where traffic volumes exceed 4,000 vehicles a day, which also would hold true. These policies stem from goals in the comp plan, and some of these goals are grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health, and also looking at different types of land uses. I'm going to go into some slides to kind of delve into that a little bit more as we look at these policies. Maintain or enhance community levels of service. As addressed in previous presentations this evening, this is often done through impact fees with park fee, street fee, or public safety fee. Looking at long-term fiscal health or maintain and enhance residential quality of life. The next slide's going to go into that. And all of this is to kind of promote the compatible, well-designed development. So what you have here is you have all these residents that reside at this area. Nearby potential for neighborhood commercial would bring offerings for individuals to, I don't know what's going to go in there, but it leads, commercial allows the potential for neighborhood type services or other services that you would need on a daily need at that area. Even if it's a restaurant up at that location, a small little deli or whatnot, is something people can walk to, a bakery, an ice cream shop, all those are allowed in that. Looking at the parks, this is the site and this is the park level of service. You see it's within the 1 mile level of service area. And I took a snipping from our internet to kind of go into that quality of life, enhanced quality and well-designed development. You see here just off to the east, you got this regional park in green just off to the east. And to the southeast of there, we have the Tullamore Park, and they do the summer concert series and whatnot down there. So with the commercial that may go along Highway 41 and potentially the different types of commercial uses that could go on here, you see the establishment of potentially having the live, work, play type environment. You get the tech mix to the north, so you're dispersing the commercial activity, of which, like I've said before, by dispersing commercial throughout the community leads to the potentiality of reducing the VMT, vehicle miles traveled, versus if you kept all your traffic on Highway 4, all your commercial on 41 and Southeast Way, now you have these sea of people that have to drive all the way across town just for their services. So that was one of the tenets of the comp plan, was to establish and try to reduce some of that impact and grow more sustainable. So looking at the second policy, we're looking at apply and revise zoning, looking at the future land use map, kind of gone down that path. Compatibility with surrounding land uses, went over that. Infrastructures and future traffic patterns. The detail analysis, like I said, in the staff report, and Rob's present tonight if there's other additional questions. It's Rob Paulus, he's the assistant city engineer. Goals and policies of comp plans related to the master plan. I've also kind of gone over some of that. The last three criteria, commercial and high density residential, is along the higher road classification. That's what they're proposing. The next one is commercial and lower density, typically as they proceed further away from high intense urban activities. That's kind of why this was suitable for the R2 and the single family, but we also have policies that also lend itself to higher uses when you're along those higher classified roadways. And there's a purpose to that, because ideally you transition from your higher uses along your higher classified roadways to your lesser intense, to kind of buffer the impact of those corridors. We're already hearing that today on pole line. As uses have gone on pole line, and we have single family neighborhoods right up on pole line, at times we do get complaints about the noise of traffic, fire, light pollution. That's what the role of some of those higher uses are. Not saying that what's going on pole line isn't suitable, it's just a factor. The last one is industrial zoning. They're not asking for that, so that's not applicable. Here's the agencies that are noticed. You can see here the school districts right here, they were noticed. Police department, fire, and there's Panhandle Health right there, right above Trans-Canada. We also got Pine Plain, gas and utilities were noticed. We received some comments Post Falls Police, they were neutral. Cooney County Fire remained neutral. The Highway District had no comment on this, and Department of Environmental Quality, all their comments were construction related. Here's the 6 review criteria for this proposal. I'd stand for any comments from staff that you have at this time.
Questions for staff?
So can you just remind me what is allowed in CCS?
CCS, it allows a full spectrum of commercial. So anything you see down Southeast Way and Highway 41 for the most part, that commercial land uses, those are allowed. You can have fast food restaurants, you can have strip malls, you could have some gas stations, you could have some wash bays. That's kind of what that is. So
there's no like residential at all. It's
you can, thanks for bringing that up. You can, through a special use permit, apply for and once again, that would come before you, for some multifamily on that site.
What could you apply for as far as multifamily goes? Would
Well,
that be like high density?
Yeah,
Like
it's
the really high density?
It's
or-
CCS, so you could request for a special use permit for R3, being an acre, you'd yield about 18 dwelling units an acre without other bonuses. Once again, though, that's part of that special use permit that would go before you.
Okay. So in the CCS, it's not outright permitted. Residential is not outright permitted, but it could be with a special use.
Yeah, and I would like to reiterate, going back to that comp plan on that. The comp plan in the focus area along Prairie alludes to the fact that higher densities are actually more preferable than lower densities. And so looking at the situation at this site, if the east, as originally was proposed, went to commercial or multifamily, here's potentially you're going to have this subdivision, they'll be exiting north. So that's potentially could be not a super busy, but busier than other streets in that subdivision. That traffic would probably be less of an impact for a multifamily project there than single family at that location. Additionally, as far as the text amendment,
You'd have less traffic on a high-density multifamily than
I
a
wasn't
single
speaking
fam-
traffic. I'm saying the impact of the traffic along this corridor. This would have more of an impact on single family than if it was a multifamily project. Because you're going to see all those cars going by if you were a single family. If you're a multifamily project, you're probably not going to give a whirl about the whole thing. So, and then also, like tonight later on with the text amendment, we're proposing multifamily buffering. And so, and the purpose of that is if that went to a multifamily, we're now, in another hearing later, we don't know what the outcome of that yet because we haven't started that, but there will be a proposal to have 15-foot landscape buffer with deciduous trees and evergreen trees and a planting strip along that if it went down that route.
Okay.
However, at this point, there's no discussion of multifamily. We're just
Yeah, this time we're just dealing with commercial, and we have a whole other public hearing on the request later down the road if they ever wanted to do multifamily.
Okay. Got it. That answered my question.
Other questions?
John, is that, and I know they're working on Prairie, and I think it's in that exact area. Is that going to be 3 lanes so they can make the left hand?
That would, I would defer, I mean, I believe that's true, but I will let, Rob could probably answer more specifically what Prairie's going to look like and the turning movements on that, for that exit point.
I honestly didn't think we were going to get to see Rob tonight. Rob, come on up.
He was busy
I was getting nervous too.
Right.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. So with the work that's been going on with Prairie Avenue between Greens Ferry Road and Cecil, we've been having the developers do their widening on the south side of the road, put in the curb and gutter. At this point, what that allows us to have is 2 lanes in the eastbound direction and then a single lane in the westbound direction. At the intersection of Cecil Road itself, we did provide some additional width so that a left turn pocket can be provided at that location. At this location right now, I don't recall, and I don't think that we have a turn pocket going in at this time. We do see long-term, as traffic continues to grow on Prairie Avenue, that eventually this may become a restricted turn movement, and that traffic from Prairie, when it gets built out, but in order to do that, we will either need to see annexations on the north side of Prairie to get the rights of way and have the construction, or we'll have to do a grant project to get the improvements put in. But long-term, we do see that left turns would be allowed off of Prairie into the subdivision, but left turns from the subdivision to head westbound on Prairie will probably be restricted sometime 10 to 15 years from now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Anything else for staff?
You can see why I'd like to punt some of those questions.
Right. Makes total sense. All right. We'll bring the applicant.
What's that? Can you leave that slide? Oh, yeah. Which one you looking for? Want this one or that one? Okay. There you go.
Hello again. Jeremy Terzulli. I still reside in Hauser, Idaho, and I still am associated with Olson Engineering based here in Post Falls. I did prepare a small presentation, but as is often the case, when you have to follow Post Falls Planning's version of Elvis, it's redundant and inadequate, so I'll just stick with this for now. So this is part of the larger Green Meadows subdivision. It was a 3-phase project and is often the case in these larger subdivisions. As you move through phasing, conditions change slightly and you tend to make little micro corrections as you move through it. And this is one of those cases. So as John had pointed out, this is sort of the major entrance point to this subdivision. And as we designed out the 3rd phase, it didn't seem to make sense to have these additional lots that would front the major component, the major traffic and entry point into this subdivision. It seemed to make more sense to flip this over to commercial in conjunction with the stuff to the east. Again, as John pointed out, it is a stone's throw from the comprehensive plan's goal of a commercial node up here on Prairie. This is a deliberate attempt to sort of satisfy and try out these commercial components within walking distance to an awful lot of rooftops, these developments. Ice cream shop, coffee shop, small fitness facility, those types of things where people can walk, convene without having to come onto the major collectors, go all the way back into town to get a coffee, to meet somebody for coffee, to go meet with their tax prep professional, something to that effect. So in the construction of this, the developer, the stuff to the east, he has started to put it out there, see who the end user might be there, and he kind of allowed me to share with you guys this evening that he's sort of in communication with somebody that would want to use that as like a recreation facility, indoor basketball, volleyball courts, those types of things. There seems to be a huge demand for that. The Parks and Rec Department are always fighting over gym time. He's working with a private entity to create that sort of situation where perhaps some batting cages, those types of things. We think there's high demand. You plunk that there, his vision across that corridor coming into the development, I can assure you we're not going to be coming with an SUP request for high density in there. He already has a plan, if approved, for envision something like at Atlas and Prairie as you approach Hayden, that little strip mall there that is very successful, very little turnover in tenancy, creates for all the residents over there a little commercial pocket, so they might not have to go all the way into town. That's the end goal here. And like I said, as we move through and designed out this final phase of the subdivision, some of these micro corrections are inevitable. Traffic patterns change, conditions around you change because it's taken a couple of years to get here. And so again, we hope that you take all this criteria, acknowledge that it perfectly fits within the comprehensive plan and that desire for commercial node. One thing of note, I did go to check the most recent traffic counts on Prairie, and daily traffic count was over 8,000 vehicles per day. So it's definitely additional commercial services, we believe, staff believes, your comprehensive plan talks about it, are really needed kind of on the periphery of town to help with some of the traffic mitigation, keeping people having to go into town for basic services that can be provided through these commercial neighborhood nodes. So with that, I'll do my best to answer any questions and hope that you recommend approval of this zone map amendment.
Questions for applicant?
Just one quick question. You plan on keeping it at 4 lots or leaving it at one?
One lot. It'll be like I said, that in talking with the developer just this afternoon in preparation, he has a vision for that little strip center over at Atlas and Prairie. He thinks it's a winner here.
I have a question. Did you compare John to Elvis?
I did hear that. And,
He's your version of Elvis, you know, when he's presenting multiple cases in the same night, you know, that's,
I get it.
I mean, you don't take that lightly.
I get it.
That is not a criteria to consider, though.
certainly
Little
wouldn't be
bald
if you
for
had
Elvis,
that
but-
Phoenix jumpsuit on. Any other?
I'm glad we can laugh after that first public hearing. I appreciate, and I think you guys do a fantastic job, so thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
None? Okay, thank you, sir. Public comment,
None.
in favor, neutral, or against? Okay. So, any other questions for staff? Anyone else? No? We'll close it out. Anybody want to share?
I think this is really smart. I look at those 4 duplex lots and I think, okay, that's kind of a main entrance to a subdivision, and I see especially that north lot, I envision someone backing out of their driveway right there at that intersection. I think, oh, God, it's a rough. And so I see this as a great improvement over what they had done before, and I think it's a great tweak. But more to the point of what they're what they're requesting, I do think that the comprehensive plan along an arterial like Prairie Avenue does support commercial. The fact that it's in a there's a lot of rooftops within 3/4 of a mile of it. It allows people to jump on their bike or walk down the pathways and the sidewalks to get there. And any traffic that comes from elsewhere in the city to this commercial node would likely use Prairie, so they won't be going through, skirting through the subdivision necessarily. It's probably a lot faster to take Prairie and get there. So from that standpoint, it makes a heck of a lot of sense to have commercial on both sides of that little street before it dumps into the residential subdivision.
James, you're getting ready to say something.
Yeah, and kind of just following on Ray's, I live up in the north area of that, of the city, and, commercial node like this, I can't walk to it, but I can definitely get in my car, and it takes me 2 minutes to get there instead of having to drive all the way down to Super One or Walmart. Not that, that only takes 10 or 15, but just have something convenient like this, depending on what's in there, is nice. Every time you go by that Atlas store over there in Hayden, it's always busy. All those stores are always busy. So I think this is a good something to put in that area that's not there before, and I think it will do well.
I'm going to agree with the commissioners before me.
Yeah, I agree.
Kevin?
Be fun to see.
I fought for gym space for 20 years. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Utah does this. They insert these little mini parks, if you will, like these little corporate golf course, executive golf courses and batting cages. They're a huge hit, huge success.
Yeah. Being involved in nonprofits in the past, I mean, even the gymnasiums that we had were almost 7 days a week nonstop. So it's exciting to be able to see this, and looks like a good deal. So unless there's anything else, I would look for a motion.
All right. I will move to recommend approval of Green Mountain Zone Change, file number RZNE-0004-2021, finding that it meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code 18.16.010 and 18.20.100 as outlined in our deliberations, with a zoning designation of CCS, and direct staff to prepare a reasoned decision.
Just,
Second.
well, I thought, just for clarification, so it was in the record, I thought she said Green Mountain,
Oh,
but it's
wait,
Green
did I not
Meadows.
do the right one?
Just to make sure it's right.
So Green Meadows.
Green
Oh,
Meadows.
I'm sorry, I just wrote it down wrong. Green Meadows, sorry about that.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion by Nancy. Ross was second, correct? Okay. Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Stevenson,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Hampi.
Yes.
All right, that concludes, no, I'm just kidding. Last public hearing this evening would be zone code update. Go ahead and open that up. Mr. Manley to present. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm never going to live that down now.
Nope. Jeremy, good job.
All right, so the fun one, Title 18, housekeeping. The housekeeping update, TA1, 2021. So, seems like my housekeeping updates never truly keep to the spirit of housekeeping, and they seem to be, they always end up meaty, and I'm following suit. So here we go, the 2 pages of the overview coming up. So, modifications to the land use table. We have some storage units restrictions within that, and there's also some increases the allowed uses within the TM zone. Bulk and placement table has some changes to it too. Looking at removing MF from multifamily from the R2 and reduce the single family lot size. Also remove single family from the R3. We're also looking at clarifying the base residential density within that table as well. Proposing some swimming pool design standards, modify some ADU standards, accessory dwelling units that is. Some minor modifications to multifamily design standards. We just recently developed multifamily standards. You know, like anything, you come up with some standards and you see some stuff that may or may not work, and then shortly thereafter you come up with some little tweaks, and that's what we're doing with that. With those multifamily standards, we also looked at equipment screening and bike racks. I mean, sorry, we had some standards, design standards for multifamily. We're now blending that into the commercial. And that's kind of what we're doing there. Proposing some seasonal parking standards. We're looking at removing the requirement for landscape architect to design landscape plan and inspect prior to attaining a certificate of occupancy. This has actually been something admittedly like the code requires, but it's very difficult when you have a landscape architect, it happens to be in Kentucky, you know, and they need to fly out here and inspect it prior to getting a CO. So, you know, I realized the minute the recession hit and people stopped working in certain arenas, I'm like, I had this code, and you're like, okay, well, they don't even exist. So are we not going to let someone occupy their business? So, and on top of that, we have, we don't have a real complicated landscape code section. So oftentimes the smaller sites, you can have a lot of civil engineers, architects can propose landscape plans that's reviewed by staff at urban forestry. A lot of your bigger sites, they have landscape architects as part of the team, so it naturally happens with some of your larger developments anyways. We're looking at, I mentioned this earlier, buffering between multifamily and single family. Also looking at adding some administrative exception language to neighborhood signs. There's been some issues in the past where subdivisions come in, they want to put a neighborhood sign, it looks tasteful, it looks artful, but it's taller than 5 feet. and we're stuck with the 5-foot limit. This just allows us to administratively look at and have some discretion and coordination on that. And we also have some just general improvements on definitions and whatnot. A lot of it you've seen in the code, italicized words within the document that then corresponds to definitions within the definition table to make it a little more clearer. So going into the details of the accessory dwelling unit, I'm kind of going to go through the easier ones first and then get to the meaty ones later. But with the ADUs, we're clarifying that you can provide those both attached and detached. There's a lot of good ways to meet the markets for having that in both methodologies. Also, we're being a little more clear. Before it said it'd be primary residence no more than 1,000 square feet, whichever is greater. So when you had the 50% and then whichever is greater 1,000, oftentimes it didn't make any sense. And so rewording it adds a little more clarity that you can't go more than 1,000. But we're also improving or increasing. Staff sees it as an improvement, just shifting just 10% to allow a little bit more square footage for those ADUs to just making them a little more accommodating for that living lifestyle there. Swimming pools, you see here, some of the issues we've had with swimming pools is just the proximity to lot lines. A lot of times we have like a patio, you can do a flat patio all the way up to the lot line. So it's confusing for people going, well, I can have a patio, but I can't have a pool. They're both semi-flat. But if we have a permit, if we issue a permit, then you got to meet setbacks because we don't have any other language. This provides a path so we can go within 5 feet of any property line, but we do specify that they got to be in the side or rear yard of a residence. You can't put them in the front. There's also some building code questions for screening and fencing and whatnot they would have to meet, but that's a building code thing, not a zoning oriented thing.
I got a quick question for that, John. Is the distance from to the edge of the pool 6 feet? Or is the setback to the edge of the pool or edge of the pool deck?
The way we would do it is it says pools, filtration systems, and all associated equipment must be located with 5 feet from. So it'd be the pool, edging of the pool. Like you could have your flat patio and we would treat it just like a patio.
So the pool deck could be within that 5 feet, but just not the edge of the pool.
The edge of the pool couldn't be in. When you say pool deck, sorry, I don't know what.
Pool, so a pool, the pool is in the whole part. And then there's the deck around it for an in-ground.
The deck I would see as a patio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deck would be treated like a patio.
Yeah, and I think it, just to kind of clarify, it does cover both in-ground and above ground. And so trying to capture the,
right.
If it was above ground, it would be all of the outer limits of those sort of above ground pools. And then if it's in ground, the edge of the pool, I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've designed a couple of pools, both indoor and outdoor, and there's piping on the outside underneath the pool deck from the filter skimmers and things like that. And I would expect, that the actual, it's a technical thing, but it's just.
Well, you could have a heated patio. Like if you had a heated patio, you'd have equipment under the patio.
Right.
But you could put that patio up to the property line.
Mr. Seal, anything to add with that?
Well, there are certainly considerations as to where to measure from and to. I mean, I guess it's determined whether it's measured to the water's edge or to the coping, because you end up with various styles of pools.
I mean, if we wanted to, we could add clarifications that
I think that might be appropriate
add
just
a language
to clarify
to
things.
this that clarifies that.
The word coping? Is that the official
That's
term?
That's the term.
It's a word that I used in previous regulations I've dealt with.
And the 6 feet's more of being consistent with building code, the separation with building code.
Keeps people from jumping off of roofs into pools.
Although,
You jump 6 feet pretty easily.
in my younger days, I could probably make it, but I wouldn't attempt it now.
When I heard you got out of that chair, no.
All true. So the other one deals with storage units. Someone told me the other day that, Post Falls actually has the highest number of storage units per capita, here. We have a lot of storage units. We're seeing a loss of a lot of our good commercial land along the Southeast and 41. And we have other opportunities for storage units within Post Falls. And so what we're proposing is to lots that front or have frontage on 41 Southeast Way, Mullen Avenue and Prairie, you no longer could you can no longer have storage units along those corridors. That being said, we did though in the land use table provide a special use permit opportunity, because you may be doing a subdivision and be building along a rail corridor. It may make sense along a rail corridor on other type of facilities to propose a storage unit within an R1 zoning, but then that would come before you as a special use permit for that request. If it was in the middle of a subdivision, you guys, it may not make a lot of sense. So, in fact, staff would probably deter them from even coming to you if they were trying to propose something like that. But we're increasing opportunities in others, but decreasing in others as well. Seasonal use parking. So this has come up due to the fact that we have a commercial user in Post Falls that provides a seasonal use to have access to the river. It's been going on for some time, and a better part of almost 30 years probably. Since then, Post Falls has grown a lot. So something that's gone on for a long time with the population base we were 30 years ago is completely different than the population base we have now. So you get a lot more people desiring to get access to that river. Because it's kind of a grandfathered use and we could see other uses, we wanted to create some code to handle this if it happens in the future on other sites or on this site over, and this is actually the template site. So right here, we're looking at here that, having it open to the public without charge. The parking area must be open, but only from April to October 31st. So it gives us a time frame that we can coordinate with code enforcement to regulate if it happens before or after that. Public restrooms and solid waste collection disposal must be provided. Once again, having some health regulations and safety and see on how that is. I have highlighted there, didn't mean to skip that because that's why I highlighted it, but the parking area must be located within 10 feet from all property lines. And the reason why I highlighted that is staff is not partial to 10 feet, 20 feet or whatnot. It's just, that was just, a stab. If you as a commission ever wanted to increase it or council, that's open for discussion just like any of these other ones. The site must be, the parking area must be closed between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7. So that gives, once again, code enforcement means to kind of get people off this parking area if that private entity wanted to continue with that free access. There's some maintenance elements of it. Keep it in good condition, repair from garbage, paper, weeds, litter, grasses, whatnot. So keep it in clean, upstanding site. So once again, a code enforcement opportunity. Those mentioned proposed tech uses. We've had people interested in the tech mix zone, but have found that the current permitted uses is semi-limiting. So permitted by right, as proposed, is you'd have the food and beverage manufacturing, bakery, products manufacturing, beverage products, textile, clothing, furniture, flat glass, glassware, and there's a couple that were by special use permits. Because the rubber products manufacturing, plastics manufacturing is pretty broad. You could have someone a secondary or down the line in the manufacturing. They're just putting plastic components together. They're not emitting toxic air and chemicals into our atmosphere. So this would give us a way to kind of acknowledge that and maybe permit it through a special use permit. But if they came forward with something that was going to be detrimental to the environment, more than likely they would get denied. And once again, staff would probably keep them from coming before you. Commercial industrial development standards, looking at equipment screening and bike racks. The next picture goes over equipment screening for the reasons for this, but the bike racks that we're proposing is 1 per 5 parking stalls for commercial, and for industrial, 1 bike per 10 parking stalls. At minimum, 2 bikes should be accommodated within a commercial and industrial development site, so there's also a minimum. In this, I researched a bunch of communities. Some were more restrictive, some was less restrictive. This happened to kind of fall right in the middle of that. Also, Post Falls is trying to encourage being walkable and bike friendly, so having new businesses come here and be able to allow them to safely park their bikes is perceived as an amenity and complementary to the goals of Post Falls. Equipment screening is, as you see here, is to prevent these air conditioning units and mechanical equipment on the outside without some screening. Oftentimes you can put in a screened wall or some planting to help minimize that, or you can do some architectural insets that can kind of help with that also.
That's some quick questions for you on the screening part, John. The roof stuff makes sense to me for industrial and commercial. Is that also for like ground units?
Yeah, so ground units, you may design your building, so maybe you kind of get one side out a little bit, maybe you run a wall to kind of screen it, maybe you put in part of your planting buffer for your landscape. You just kind of design, it just causes a little bit more redesign on your site.
So a lot of commercial and industrial buildings put their equipment kind of in the back, right? And it seems to make sense to me, especially industrial sites, if they have commercial or if they have equipment that maybe if the whole site is screened, it doesn't necessarily have to screen the just that equipment, because I think that's probably gonna, I think about different types of industrial processes, like, I mean, of course, the mill is gone, but there's different things that might fall under that definition for screening. But I mean, even going to a commercial building, like if you look at any of the commercial buildings around and like a commercial office building, the facade that everyone sees is the nice building facade, and in the back next to the building is a little condensing unit for the air conditioner that, you know, similar to residential.
Building could be part of the screening.
So the building can be part of the screening. Does it have to be on like the three sides, or is it, I mean, I guess.
If it's viewed from public way, it would be screened. So if you can't see it, then it's screened.
Okay, so,
That makes
okay.
sense.
So if the site is screened by a site obscuring fence or a berm or landscaping, then all the equipment on the site could be just out.
You just can't do like on Baugh Way. I went there, I left Walmart today, and every single building had their equipment visible from the road.
Right.
When all it would have taken is just a little bit of redesign, and then you wouldn't see any of it.
Okay.
Do you have another one on that?
No, that's it. That was the part that.
I will though look in how it's described to make sure we're more clear on that the building can act as part of the screening.
Yeah, it kind of feels like maybe the definition should be, so it can't be seen from the public way or something like that. So if you can design the site smartly, yeah.
Go ahead.
All other communities I've worked for have had requirements for commercial sites that require the screening of these, and typically has been done with plantings or fencing. I mean, you can look at various sites that have recently been constructed in town where the equipment is right adjacent to, say, a parking lot. So you practically are running into large equipment. We're not talking a small piece, and it is very obvious that it's outdoors and it's visible from the roadway mostly, but primarily from like the primary parking lots.
Right.
I was at one for lunch today and I
So like
noted it.
in those cases, it may be in your rear, so you're like screening from the public view from the road, but you're not screening from the public view from the parking area. So it all depends on how that's being developed.
I guess in my mind's eye, I was thinking like alley, commercial with alley on the back where all the AC units are in the back, access off the alley, and it's a nice front facade, but there's not necessarily room to screen off the back if there's an alley and things like that. It's kind of where that stuff seems to.
Good
lend itself.
commentary. I think I can coordinate with Field and we can add that clarification if you desire it. As part of your motion, you can kind of make sure that we're looking into that.
Okay.
Yeah, the way it reads right now, for commercial and industrial performance, the ground mounted of mechanical equipment must be inset into building facades and/or screened with landscaping or low walls. So you can add some clarification as to
Screen so it can't be seen from the street. That way, if an entire site is.
And that's on
screened.
commercial or commercial and industrial.
that is under the commercial. It's the same in both places, but we could add that specifically to the commercial and industrial performance standards. There is some language for outside storage, a little bit farther down, that's existing language in the code that says screen from public view by site obscuring fences, walls, berms, structures, or combination of these. And so I think we could incorporate similar language to up above, that the mechanical equipment must be screened from public view by either inserting it into building facades, screened, or landscaping or low walls.
That makes sense.
Then would you want us to exempt out alley? I mean, that's kind of a
Probably.
quandary one, because that's something maybe we can mull over between but Bob, myself, the planning and legal to kind of look at, because you're right, alleys are a little difficult. If you're
Right.
6 feet off the alley,
If we want to develop this area here into a downtown type area with commercial and business, equipment's gonna have to go somewhere, and that's typically where it'd probably go. And
or it would go on the roof.
Or the roof, yeah.
But then you could throw parapet walls on that, so
Right.
by not exempting it out, you would encourage everything to go on the roof and screen with a parapet. That's probably how it would go down.
Probably.
So probably my leaning would to go is to keep it as the public view, so it's clear. And then, once again, just like with what I'm going to present, there could be little tweaks if we ever have an issue.
Okay.
And that's for new development.
Correct. Yes. Yep. If you're pre-existing or if you expand and require a site plan or your building, potentially, we would then look at your new expansion areas meeting it. But your pre-existing site, you're not going to remodel your whole site and redo all for that. But multifamily standards. So this is that little tweak I mentioned in the multifamily. So townhome development in the current 150 square feet for one bedroom and 300 square feet for ones greater than one bedroom proves problematic for rear-loaded townhouse style projects. Actually, for townhouse style projects in general, my druthers wasn't to provide this exemption for front-loaded townhomes, because what you end up doing is encouraging a bunch of driveways, not a lot of garbage, stormwater. But if you rear load them, you then can still preserve your parking in front of the building, deal with mail carrying and trash and snow removal. So in that, though, exempt out 50% of the open space requirements such that they provide a patio of 80 square feet and a minimum depth of 6 feet. I asked a lot of multifamily developers in the area about that 6 feet, because I know for single-family homes, they oftentimes build it at 5. From who I heard from, 6 wasn't going to be an encumbrance. 6 gives that 1 foot gives you a little bit more room to kind of like sit in a chair, and if you can have a little table and actually move a little bit. So that's why we went with the 6. The 80 square feet was, once again, looking at a bunch of patio balconies that typically get developed, and the 80 feet was in line with that. Looking at townhomes that are rear-loaded, this is kind of what they look like. A lot of times along the front, there may be a tract, which is a common area. They have some space in between for a walkway, and they may be intermixed, like on this picture, you can't see it too well. They're intermixed with a bunch of single-family homes. They're blending in with single-family homes and transitioning, and then you can see here. So, and those patios would all work with what's being required. Also, the bike racks here, we're looking at 1 bike rack per unit placed in a manner that is not to obstruct pedestrian traffic. So you'd have to put them on there so everybody could still walk and not just throw them on sidewalks.
So with regards to bike racks, sorry, I'm jumping in here a lot, but
yeah, I don't think you were able to make the workshop, so
I wasn't.
So
and
naturally,
and
now's your opportunity.
Right, now's my opportunity, and I'm sorry I didn't put in my input then. So I had someone go out to a multifamily development, an apartment complex that one of our developers does or owns, and it's a 384 unit apartment complex in North Spokane in a similar vicinity, like a similar development pattern to Post Falls, and there were 15 bikes in the bike racks. That same developer has apartments in Cheney and in Ellensburg across the street from the universities, and those bike racks are they're full all the time. So there's a huge diversity in the type of community and the need for bike racks. And I think the ratio here might be off. I think maybe like 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 would be probably a little bit more accommodating. I don't think it's really a dollar thing. It's just a matter of if a 24-unit building, so it's a typical 3-story woody walk-up apartment, would have 24 bike racks in front of it. So there's 2 entrances on each one of those. It means a 6-pack on each side of each entrance, and it just ends up, I think the look isn't something that would necessarily be all that, I guess, what we're looking for. I think we definitely want to make sure we provide the accommodations for people and encourage them to ride their bikes and do that, but I think requirement for at 1-to-1 is probably a little excessive. I think maybe 1-to-3 or 1-to-4 might be a little more in line with our community.
I'm not real partial on this. I know a lot of this stemmed from conversations between Bob and myself, looking at what that balance should be. I think we were trying to discourage seeing bikes hanging from balconies as much, because right now we don't have any requirement. So what is that balance?
Right. And I think most people, if the bike's from a balcony, it's usually just a security thing.
Yeah,
they don't want it stolen.
Yeah, if you have an expensive bike, you're not going to put it on a back rack.
Yeah, you're not going to see road bikes.
You don't see a tri-bike sitting out in the, yeah, you see the Huffy.
Yeah, I'm not partial. I mean, like I said, if 1-to-3 is better than we got now, 1-to-1, that's a proposal that would allow each unit their own bike rack outside. So, that's why we have a public process and we take commentary. Do you have anything, Bob?
I'm not, I'm not really set on the 1-to-1. 1-to-2 is fairly easy to say. 3 or 4, you start getting, maybe it starts getting a little slim and a little less options. As everybody seems to be concerned that there's always lots of kids in apartment buildings. Maybe those kids are riding their bikes around and they come over and they come from other neighborhoods and they come there and now you need more bike parking spaces. Or you can always look at, is there a way to indicate that it's one bike parking or storage space per unit? So then that if they're providing on-site storage space for bikes, which some places do, that could count towards it. But I think that bike racks are often meant as intermittent and temporary. If you were out riding your bike and you happen to come back to the apartment, you may not want to haul it all the way inside yet. You just want to lock it up because you're gonna go back out in an hour. I don't know.
Right. It's one of those. It's a kind of a
6 on one and half a dozen of the other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because how much? Yeah. Is it if you own it and you bring it inside versus?
Well, it's not it's not a high cost per unit to provide.
Right. It's not a cost thing.
Yes.
It's more of an aesthetic, I think.
And typically, most of the apartment complexes are being built with enough open space and enough public areas that it doesn't become, aesthetically, they can locate them pretty well now, especially with the open space requirements that we've put in. Mm-hmm. They're not quite all just asphalt like they were before, previously constructed as. So, I mean, if you want to switch it to 1 per 2 units, it's fine. Number 2, it seems like. But again, I can't remember if we looked at code elsewhere to find this, because a lot of times when we go to do code, we don't just want to pull numbers out of a hat to decide how we're going to do this. We look to other cities and similar areas. And, Post Falls is very flat. We've got a lot of bike lanes. We've got a lot of bike trails. So it's something that people are definitely taking advantage of and want to provide that opportunity. That's all.
Yeah, and I don't bring it up because of any other reason than that my company does probably 1,500 to 2,000 units worth of apartment designs every year, and it's that struck me as excessive. It popped in my head like, whoa, that's a lot.
Okay.
And
I think you brought up a good point. If you're in Moscow, if you're in even Fort Ground, you're going to have.
Yeah, it's a very much community driven, and also the population of the apartments. Who's living there, and students in Moscow or Pullman, bikes everywhere. Apartments in Tullamore, not so much. Or
And a big
maybe
empty
North
bike
Spokane.
rack doesn't look great either, with
Yeah.
that same bike that's been there for 2 years.
Yeah, storage.
Yeah.
Right. So, my comments on it.
All right, so here's the buffering stuff I mentioned that is being proposed. Currently, we treat all residential the same. There's no buffer between multifamily and residential. Looking at some of the developments that's occurred, there's been some pretty close encroachments of multifamily into some single-family backyards or side yards. And so my proposal was to begin discussing and treating multifamily like it's more like multifamily is more similar to a commercial. Yeah, people are living there, but the impact is more commercially oriented than residential. And so, therefore, you see in the proposed land use, the buffer table here, that the other residential, being not multifamily, also I'll point out exemptions of single family, 2-family, and 3-family. So you're saying, the point is, if you're doing single family, duplex, or triplex development, you're pretty similar. Once you get up to just drawing a line in the sand somewhere, if you're doing a fourplex or a multiple of fourplexes, that's when you would start your buffering, and then you would do your the A, which A is actually 10 feet. Is it 10, 15, 25? I don't have it memorized. 10, yeah, it's 10-foot separation minimum. Oh, there it is. I thought of it. I put my table in there. So there you have it. You get the 4 deciduous trees, 4 evergreen trees, and you get that 10-foot separation. So right now there's no separation between single family. So down the road, if someone put up a 3-story multifamily, and whether you're a single or a 2-story single family, you at least get some screening of some trees down the road to kind of help mitigate that impact. So now on to leading to the bulk and placement table. So now I get to go on a little bit of a story of why we're doing this. So we all see the home prices. This one here was as a 328, 362, a typical home value within that area. And then as I've been going through this in April, it rose. This one here had 409 for the same area. That's quite the jump, just a short period of time. Looking at the median incomes, they're not rising as fast or at pace as other areas of the country or nationally. Looking at that, we do have limited housing opportunities. We just have single family and we just have multifamily. We don't have a lot of entry-level homes or opportunities for entry-level homes. But a lot of that is, for decades, you saw the single family home increase and increase and increase. Part of that was due in the 70s, you see here, 418,000 entry-level homes were built every year. So if you were a boomer, you could create generational wealth buying an entry-level home, and then as you got that equity, go buy a new house at a larger size, sell that house, buy another house at a larger size, but yet nobody's building these smaller houses. So then, decades later, removed, and we're used to a certain built pattern, now we're only getting 65,000 entry-level homes. And to couple that, you see here that we would need additional 4 million additional housing units in the United States to meet the need for housing. And that's why we're kind of experiencing this crunch nationally, really, not just locally. This right here, you can't read it, and I apologize for that, but what this is saying is when I looked at the Crown Point apartments, that you can kind of see it none available. So at the time I did this research, you go look around at apartments and you needed housing, nothing's available. So, you're getting this, you want to live here or moving here, you're a job, you're trying to move to the area, and you're trying to say, okay, I need housing for my facility. Post Falls is appearing quite limited. Also, you got the cost of housing and the millennials. They say they're missing currently 400,000 houses. And what I'm addressing mostly in this proposed is the R2 and R3 zoning districts. They're a small percentage of the city, but yet could provide opportunities. I said in the workshop that the house on the left, I actually, when I was in between things before I could buy a house, that's a 550 square foot house I rented before I could buy my house. Here are some cottage homes. Here's one here, a 400 square foot tiny home. Other tiny homes that are livable units, that are attractive, and could benefit addressing some of that entry-level housing for someone to get out of the apartment. It's tough to jump out of a $1,400 a month payment, and if you have to have student loans and the cost of everything else, and then go put and match and go jump into the $400,000 starter home at $350. So they're looking at diversification, and here's the cottage homes. You know, they're a little bit larger. Currently, we're actually looking at having a range between 600 and 1,000 square feet and maxing it at 1,200. So you could do 1,000 footprint, 1,200. So that way you codify, you can do cottages, but you know, you got to keep them within a range. Townhomes are another opportunity. What you see here is what we're trying to encourage is these rear-loaded townhomes where they have the fronting the main streets, and they got aesthetically pleasing sidewalks, and they can blend in with single-family homes. So another housing product that needs skinnier lots. So what we're proposing is to address the R2 and the R3, expand housing options, but in that, we are proposing removing the minimum floor area for our housing. That's so we can get that diversification. You look at the fair housing and the policies that they have addressing zoning, and they charter zoning officials to remove the minimum square footage for each unit. The other item we're looking at removing is the max dwelling unit for the zoning district, because there's actually inconsistencies. When you do the math on the minimum lot area and you look at 43,560, you don't get that number. And so these always end up being misused and misinterpreted, and when you're doing a PUD, it gets confusing what you're going to go by because you got to be consistent with the base density. Now you would just derive it by dividing this number by 43,560, which is the acre, and that would become your base density. Here's where you see where we removed the R3 single family home as an option in the proposed code. So you're zoning with a purpose. You're saying if you're doing high density, you're near a primary arterial, you're near commercial, why would you want to create a housing unit that eventually is going to have conflict with the built environment? So you take that out of the equation. So you take the single family out of the R3, but you propose smaller lots in the R2. So potentially you get additional infill and other developments on what we have here, a minimum lot of 30 feet for minimum lots, you know, with a minimum lot size of 3,000 square feet for a lot. So a 30 by 100 lot would be your minimum lot. So you could do some townhome development on that, or twin home is what you'd end up. It might be a good cottage home development lot, unless we come up with the design standards that exempt that. Tiny homes. So it provides a way to address some potential infill.
So a tiny home is still going to be considered a single family, so it's going to have to be on its own parcel. Just the parcels can be smaller?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Makes sense.
John, just so I understand, so in R2, it'd no longer be allowed to do a triplex or a fourplex?
You could do a triplex in the form of a townhome, because we're still allowing R2 townhomes, but the chances of you doing a 25-foot wide townhome or three, you wouldn't do it. So you'd end up with you'd end up with twin homes.
That would push all the triplexes into essentially a multifamily R3 zone?
Yes.
Okay.
But you wouldn't have to do the buffering on triplexes like you would if you were doing fourplexes. Tying it back to the landscape buffer that's being proposed. Do you want to know here, through the public process, there was a concern that someone would come in, do an R2 annexation request, and they would do a bunch of 30-foot wide lots, and you would end up losing your driveway, you would end up losing your streetscape to driveways and wouldn't have enough for on-street parking, stormwater swells, mail carrying, and whatnot. So what we added was vehicular access to lots 45 feet or less must be alley loaded to maximize the on-street parking and stormwater management. So you could go down, but you probably would access them from the rear.
John,
Really,
I'm sorry, this is, I'm interrupting a lot, and I'm sorry about that. So is that, I think about cul-de-sacs and knuckles when it comes to that frontage requirement. Is that measured at the building setback line?
Typically, that's how we've done it in the past, is on cul-de-sacs. I mean, otherwise you would never get a house on cul-de-sacs. And so what we do is we usually measure the lot width at the setback line.
Okay. Can we make that clarification?
Yeah. Odds are with that, you wouldn't get, odds are with this requirement, you're not gonna get a lot less than 45 feet on a knuckle because you're gonna rear load them with an alley. There may be an exemption out there or an interesting site, but looking at just one example, I had more examples in the workshop. This area is zoned R1, and we did approve an R2 lot out here, and you have some R3, and this is just north of Mullen Avenue and some commercial on Southeast Way. So this R2 lot, there was a concern that this would be some apartments right next to some single-family home. So what this would do is provide the opportunity, and there's a different site in Post Falls where they're currently proposing doing potentially 4 cottage, this would allow like 4 cottage homes on this. So you'd have 4 detached homes on 30-foot wide lots or less. And that would be compatible with the adjoining surrounding neighborhood. Similarly, we have here an alley is between these lots, I believe. You see but this is a 40-foot wide lot. So currently being R1, it doesn't meet our minimum standards, nor does it meet our non-conforming use requirements that says if you're consistent with the previous plat, then you can meet our setbacks. So this is an interesting one to where, you know, with the code change, they could come in here and ask for an R2. Maybe you guys would entertain it, and maybe it would make sense for an infill single-family home. You know, they put maybe a cottage on it or a smaller house.
So what's the difference between a cottage and a tiny home?
As of right now, the direction we're going, we're currently developing some tiny home and cottage home design standards.
Okay.
We don't want to wait on this because otherwise we would never get any code updates to you because they become this manifesting beast. But we are looking at having 600 square feet or less be a tiny home.
Okay.
And you would have special design standards for tiny homes. And then if you get into a cottage between 600 and 1,000 square feet on the main floor with up to 1,200 square feet, so you're getting some secondary.
But those would be considered a multifamily because you said you could put up to 4 cottages on a lot. Isn't that what you said?
They're still single family.
They're still single family. So you end up with 4 platted lots.
Okay, so you'd have 4 separate lots though.
The caveat that on is with cottages, we are looking at doing, there's a difference. Cottages are built either on platted lots that are smaller, or they can be done as in a larger site under like a site plan
Condo.
review.
Like a condo plat?
That's the third option. But,
Okay.
and so then you have a common site and you put on potentially 8 cottages on one tax parcel.
Okay.
And that you go through a commercial site plan review and they're all single family homes, but we process it as a multifamily process, but they're still single family homes because they're all detached units. They're not an attached unit.
And so how do they pay their property taxes? Is it like a condo plat?
If you condo platted, then you would end up with a condo plat HOA that would maintain it. You'd have CC&Rs, all that. Or you'd have a single property owner that usually would lease that out.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can create a scenario where cottage homes are a lease unit. You end up with 10 cottages on a large lot. You lease them all out. Common owner that provides rent.
Okay. Okay. And whereas a tiny home is a single family home.
It's in line with the cottages. There's basically what you mentioned, the 3 different avenues. You put them on their own lot.
Okay.
You have multiple units on a big lot that then leases, or you end up doing
condo plat.
As it's crafted, yeah, and so we're planning on bringing in.
Okay,
something
to that
you.
later, I'm jumping ahead, right? That's not
Kind of.
what
They're
okay,
good questions,
okay,
but
okay.
yeah, ultimately,
Okay.
yeah, it does give staff some flexibility.
Okay.
And those are avenues that would still be plausible today, but.
Okay.
But John, those design standards aren't coming until a later date.
Our preliminary goals.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, right. I'm just jumping ahead a little bit, but this is kind of.
No, the wheels are
Yeah,
turning. It's good.
thanks for clarifying. It's not in this proposal. We have Laura and Ethan looking at
Okay.
those aspects of it. Okay, this is a good sign.
I thought we were going to go into.
I look surprised.
We were going to go into bungalows now.
So this would end staff's kind of overview of the proposed text amendment. So any other questions you have at this point before we end this and go on to potential comments from the public?
I have one more question and comment. It wasn't something that was in your presentation, but it had to do with wall-mounted mechanical equipment in multifamily. And I think specifically I think it's intended to keep those really ugly wall packs from sticking out all the, and
And Ross Point Boulevard? Or Spencer Street, actually. I
Spencer,
think. On the
there's a
wood-
lot of, it's pretty much most of the multifamily buildings. But it's my understanding that for them to work, the actual units to work correctly, they need airflow to go by them. And so screening them as they hang off the building can be really detrimental to their effectiveness with regards to even energy code as well as.
They can be ground mounted. They don't have to be wall mounted. They can be located on the ground. Yes, the piping is longer, and yes, it does potentially decrease some of the efficiency that's potentially coming
And roof
from
mounted.
those. And they can be roof mounted.
But
I'm trying to picture screening that I've seen on them before. I know you're talking mostly the slim.
Yeah, I'm talking like the splint. There's split packs and
mini splits and stuff.
mini
right?
splits and
Mini
things like
splits.
that. And I guess one of the questions I had would be is maybe could we look at adding some language into the code? I'm not saying get rid of it, but maybe trying to blend them in by matching color to the building or otherwise blending them into the building facade somehow so that it's not, I understand trying to make them look architecturally a lot nicer. I think that it might.
Field. What about an administrative exception? Do we have some criteria that they can apply for an administrative exception and they show mitigating measures?
That's a possibility. The other thing is, it does. So one of my comments, you see all the italicized and those kind of changes. That's stemming from the legal department's sort of overview of our code. As we update things, we are delineating defined terms so that they are italicized in the body of the code so that when people read the code, it triggers them to say, oh, this is an italicized, this is a defined term that leads them back to the definitions section. So in something like this, screen is a defined term. And so if you pop up to the definitions, it could, it's defined as a method for reducing the impact of noise and unsightly visual intrusions with less offensive elements such as plants, berms, fences, walls, or any appropriate combination thereof to reduce the visible impact of trash enclosures, utility structures, and other unsightly elements. And so I think that sort of definitionally, I think there's some room for interpretation there.
When looking at the definition of screen, do you want to, adding some form of language that says architectural elements as one of the effective ways of screening?
I just put in 3 mini splits. It's 24 inches, 360 degrees around it. It has to be clear.
I'm just saying architectural elements.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find ways that it's not like,
Sure.
here, let's wall it off.
Right. I was just thinking that if the color was similar to the building, it's just not a white mini split hanging off of a brown building.
Right.
Then I know you don't want them black because that doesn't work very well for the heat exchange, but.
When we're trying to avoid an architectural review committee or a design review committee too, so.
Right. So that's added processes that you guys just don't need.
We can go back to one if we need to.
And that's kind of where I was hoping that maybe we could look at something like that, because I understand that the architectural review of something like that.
But at the same time, if it's added or it's looked at as like an administrative exception type of thing. That's done at the staff level. It's like, oh, you know what, how do we blend in this white unit? What options do you have? What still allows for good airflow? What still, is there do they come in different colors? Do they come, something that, it doesn't
Tan
take
and
go.
white.
What's that?
Tan and white is all we found.
Well, maybe someday they're going to come up
They
with
got
black ones.
plethora of 'em.
Architecture. I've worked in towns that had everything that you could ever imagine. But just trying to find ways, because again, as you noted, there are some buildings that are being constructed that it is very obvious that they have a lot of these hanging off the walls, and they are not attractive.
Right.
So, and we're trying to.
I think there's ways to make it attractive. It's just, I think we need to, but not having them as, can be option, make it difficult. And with energy code going where it's going, that can be really problematic.
And they may find ways in order to better construct the buildings so that there is maybe a centrally located one that does maybe extend the length of the building, but you're not having to mount them right against the individual units. Maybe, because the piping can go a distance.
And you can do central air.
It's horrible looking. We ground mounted ours, but they're on the back side of the building and they're already screened by the fence. So our piping goes up 5.5 feet, and it's a horrible looking. If it went all the way up the side of a complex, it'd be horrendous.
Again, you can blend those
Oh
into
yeah, put them in a
architectural.
tube or do whatever. Yeah.
And if it was a new building, new building architecture, they can design it and put it internal.
Okay.
The rest of it has exceptions.
Anything else? We've had some gentlemen here since the very, very beginning that I believe want to discuss parking in regards.
Yeah, I think they want to deal with that. They have some commentary regarding the seasonal use parking.
Right.
Actually, because I know that, I'll go back.
I was going to say, do you want to go back to that?
We have architecturally consistent built. Yeah, equipment screening, but you had a definition of screening. I was just wondering. Not a big deal, but it's just an idea, just throw it in there in the future. It covers a bit of somebody's reading definition screening.
There we go.
I think we just add in.
All right. I believe we have Dennis that's wishing to speak.
Administrator may grant deviations.
Good evening, folks. My name is Dennis Carnaccione. I live at 304 South Coho in Post Falls. My property abuts against the Templin property line. I've been there for this will be my fifth summer, and I've been trying to deal with the overflow of parking that's been allowed through the Templins or now the Red Lion Association, where they can actually park up to the edge of my fence, which is, it's their property, but it's right up against my fence line. And I'm trying to change to see if you guys would be willing to consider changing the 10-foot to a 50-foot away from the property line. Just because, and it's as far as seasonal goes, seasons usually go from Memorial Weekend to Labor Day. I don't know about 7 months through the year because most of the time it's snow or ice is there. But what happens is I've tried to get a hold of Air Quality Control, but they were unavailable to meet tonight for this because I've gotten them involved, is when they do allow that parking, and it's in a grassy area, so they create a nothing but a dust bowl. And I can't hardly sit on my patio in my windows because it's an open air, and if my air is on, all that goes into my unit, goes into my house, and I'm just trying to figure, it's a losing battle with Templins, because Templins used to take care of the property. They used to manicure it. As far as cutting the grass, they haven't done that for quite some time. They don't even irrigate it anymore, which they irrigated it, which created the grass to grow instead of becoming a dirt problem. So my only contention is if you guys would consider extending it to a 50-foot, to at least keep them that far away, because I've had cars park in multiple rows. I didn't bring my phone with the pictures, but it's obnoxiously upsetting because they park where they want, and they don't manage it. People drive their cars and they park in their trucks and their trailers, and they go down to a bulkhead, a beachhead, and a lot of it's because it's transient people, and it just becomes an overpopulated area, and there's no control, there's no policing, and I've gotten involved with code enforcement. And I've been on the phone with them numerous times to try to resolve this problem. And I mean, it would be a phone call every day because there's cars that are parking there overnight for 4 or 5 days in a row. So I don't know how I can handle that with Templins, or red line as it is now. But in the meantime, I'm just looking for a little bit of consideration because I know now the property's being surveyed and it's going to be probably purchased and somebody's going to develop on it. So I may having to look at cars versus bike racks versus tiny houses. I could look at my backyard. My whole back patio is open to the river, the Coeur d'Alene area, which is a beautiful place, which is why I bought the house. And I'm afraid for what's going to happen for that property value. And I don't want to have to sell to move because of the fact that there could be a condo in front of my yard. And a lot of people on the River Run Association agree with this problem, but they don't know what's going to happen. And it is being for sale and for lease. And it could be where they're going to put apartments in the front up by First Avenue and condos down to the lower part and change and put 35 more docks down there. So I don't know. That's another conversation that's going to come across you guys' desks, as you would say. But I'm just looking for a consideration that if you can exaggerate that to at least 50 feet to keep my property from having to have people park there with their music on and their kids coming out of the car and barbecues going and fire hazards because they're not irrigating it and it's not being managed, it's not being cut. And I can't win that battle with them, but I'm just trying to bring it to you guys' attention because that's my struggle. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate your time and I'm grateful that you guys stayed up late.
Well, thanks for staying up with us. Okay.
So that's all I have to do, and I do appreciate your time, and thank you, John. Because I've been in John's ear for the better part of a year, if not two now. And he's hoping to go away for me too. Because I don't want to have to go through another summer with Elvis. No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Any discussion with that?
John, there's no paving standard for temporary parking? Is that?
No, as this is crafted because it's a seasonal use, we'd be looking as having someone create a large parking lot for a seasonal use would be probably inconsistent with how we've treated other temporary seasonal uses. But we did look at having some minimum regulations to at least provide some means for code enforcement to do something when we have nothing on the books at this point in time.
So would dust abatement be appropriate for one of those? I would think that would be one.
Yeah.
And we certainly do that for construction sites. So, I mean, dust abatement on a temporary parking lot would.
Seems like you could add that to 6.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if they're going to park or allow them to park that far into the grass, then make it an asphalt so they're not driving on it.
I mean, there's sure. I mean, there's lots of stabilizing agents out there that can be applied to a dirt parking lot to keep.
We would need to have you guys come back up if you're.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'm sorry, but the seasonal behalf of this is usually based upon the weather conditions and the people who have boats in that area. It goes from Labor Day or Memorial Weekend to Labor Day, and it's pretty much over. It's the 3-month. It's not really seasonal because 7 months is from April to whenever, so that's almost annual. Then it would be appropriate to say it's seasonal. And if they can do something to, there's posts, and there was actually, I took a sign that was on the ground, it's been on the ground for the last 3 years that I've lived there. I just took the sign off the posts. So there's 2 cables that could attach to each other, and all they got to do is put a lock on that so cars can't go through that area and create any more dust. So if they would asphalt that front end of it, they could solve their own problem. But again, I offered to pay for the lock and put a lockbox on it, and they said, well, we can't have that.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay.
So whatever you guys can work out, I appreciate your help as far as whatever John can offer for me.
All right, sounds good.
I appreciate your time again.
Thank you.
very
Appreciate
much.
it. Mr. Steele, did you come forward? Did you have something that you wanted to share, or just Mr. Manley?
John, it's not for just one individual site. It is a 2.
Right, exactly.
This is
We're
for the
not
whole
just
city,
talking
right?
Red Lion here. We're talking about all seasonal parking.
In the CCS zone.
Right.
Right. And
Only in the CCS zone.
right. And I would think that, I mean, that's something that it's an enforcement item, right? So if there's a dust issue that, whatever it ends up being. So if it's a gravel parking lot that's unmaintained, or people are parking in a grass field that is not ever watered and ends up turning into a dust bowl, then that's an enforcement thing that they can get out there and do some sort of dust abatement as necessary.
And you want to add dust abatement to number 6.
I think that would be an appropriate thing.
What about number 3? Because I know, John, you did say earlier that you threw 10 feet out, but you weren't opposed.
10 was just a draft code.
Right.
It's a minimum baseline. It's a standard, like, minimum 10 feet from a property line.
Yeah.
There could be places, though, that are only a 50-foot lot, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I could pull, maybe the GIS would work, and I could pull up a map of the area if that would help.
I mean, I would think that 10 feet's probably appropriate because so we got a lot of the CCS lots that are, old Post Falls that are, maybe even 50-foot or 75-foot wide lots. So parking would be appropriate up to, like, a 50-foot would be way too, that would keep a lot of properties from doing any seasonal parking, recreational parking. But I think 10's appropriate if
If you
there's-
have the dust abatement.
if there's dust abatement that keeps it being from obnoxious to the neighbors.
I think you should have some sort of more of a designation as far as maybe it's just the same 10 feet or 20 feet from the property line, but the public restrooms and solid waste collection, who wants porta potties up next to their fence because there's a parking area, and that's what could happen.
Is that
I don't want porta potties, and that's what if you're asking that they have public restrooms, it's got to be porta potties if it's going to be seasonal, right?
Or you can have them provide access to an existing business. So we've had that with coffee stands where they don't have, like the older ones. A lot of them now provide their own restrooms internally, but they'll have a use agreement with an adjacent business where their employees and customers can go into that place of business and use their public restroom.
So Nancy, what you're saying is almost combining number 3 and number 4. The parking area must be located 10 feet from property lines and cannot include public restrooms.
Right, yeah, right.
Because, you don't want a toilet up against your fence, so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I've seen it. I've seen people do it to be mean to other people.
Okay.
I've seen it happen.
That
So
doesn't happen.
I think it's...
Got some rough friends.
Well...
Goes to the length of renting a porta potty.
Well,
I
I've
think that's
managed
good.
associations, and I'll tell you what.
I don't even think that they have any kind of facilities
I-
at the beach area. And it's.
You
oh, I'm out
usually
of
just
time?
get the 4. You usually just get the 4 minutes.
Okay,
But
I'm going to take another
10 seconds.
Thank you very much. Because I know most of it's all because it's beach access.
Yeah.
And they have the facilities, and what used to be is that if you didn't have, or you weren't a guest of the hotel, they wouldn't let you on the beach.
Right.
It was considered private.
Right.
And now it's open to the public, and a lot of people are transient where they come in from wherever they want. But there's no facilities down there. I mean, in the
Is there no
riverfront,
restrooms down at the beach house
that
down
I'm
there?
aware of, no.
yeah, there's
I was going to say.
Is there? I haven't been down there because I usually go to the pool, which is
Yeah.
part of the river run, and there's facilities there.
Yeah.
But
I
no, don't
believe
want-
there are restrooms down there.
Yeah,
There's
because
a there's a
I agree
restaurant.
I agree with her. I don't want
Right.
a toilet parked outside of my yard because of cars.
Exactly.
But thank you for
And time. Perfect.
Appreciate it.
No, I understand.
Close the public hearing.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Perfect. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Okay. Oh. Wow.
Okay.
What a night. All right. Any other commissioner comments?
No, so you said we were going to leave these here? And then you'll just put them back again?
But we
Okay.
still have an action item,
We do.
correct?
Oh, okay, sorry.
So, Field, is there enough testimony in here to make a motion where I could just say something to the effect of, I would move to, I think it's recommend approval of.
Yeah, the only thing that I would probably, I think that you could, we've got swimming pool, distance.
Defined to the edge of the pool.
Yep.
Or edge of water line, coping?
Coping.
Edge of the coping. Yeah, there we go.
That's the curb
There
piece.
isn't one, sometimes there is.
We've got the additional,
Water's edge. It's the
adding
water's
of,
edge. That's easy.
They do all have water.
from public view to the, what was that? It was 18.
So is color then a screening element in general?
Yeah, so we had the, adding the, from public view and the screening of the equipment for commercial
And industrial.
and industrial.
So screened from the public way.
Okay. And then we had
Bike
the
racks in there.
bike racks.
Or from public view.
I had from public view.
Right.
Bike racks, cul-de-sacs measured from the setback line, I believe.
Yeah, for the,
So bike racks at 1 to 2 units, or 1 per 2 units.
And then possible administrative exception to grant deviations for that screening. And then,
So
yeah.
would that include, I think that would include allow color to be used to blend into the building facade? Architecturally compatible. Man. Yeah, great words.
Are we on to bike racks yet?
We already passed them.
I don't know what, I don't know if we came down on a number for bike racks.
Yeah,
It's
1 to 2.
1 to 2.
two or one, I mean, I'm, again,
I don't
not
even-
really,
Yeah.
It's kind of grab a number, but I just,
let's see if we can find a better example, John, I don't remember.
Spokane Valley's got some that's
We
pretty
can
similar.
Tackle it in the next housekeeping amendment.
There you go.
Okay.
Not to move things along too fast, but what else do we have, Field?
Dust abatement for item 6 and 10 feet, adding the 10 feet to the public restrooms and solid waste collection.
Right, okay.
Yep, there you go.
like, we can propose 1 to 2 and 1 to 3 to council and let them pick.
Okay.
Laura, did you have something?
I think there's also the language about the setback for R2 45-foot rear loaded knuckles and cul-de-sacs that should be measured at the setback line.
Yeah, he said that.
I got
Oh, you
that.
got it?
Okay.
Well, he knows the measure, it was measured.
Okay.
Do we want to
Thanks,
talk
Al.
about screening at all? Field, anything else that we need to?
That's all the notes I had.
Okay, then we would need to have,
I would move to recommend approval of the text amendment TA 0001-0 or 2001, I think. Or is that backwards? 2021. With recommended amendments as just stated in our discussion with legal counsel.
Take that.
A second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for a vote?
Hampi,
Yes.
Schlauer,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Stephenson.
Yes.
Nancy, back to your point of the manuals.
Of the what?
Oh, the manual. So we leave them here and then they give them back to us again.
And you do have it, we all have it electronically if we need it?
Yes, I actually did print it, but yeah. This just seems so much neater because you did front and back, so.
Any administrative or
that
staff reports in addition to what we've covered?
No, just that this is probably our last 5 hearing. We're going to be trying to stick to 3 as a cap going forward, so just
Okay.
keep that noted.
That'd be great.
Yes.
Could be.
Any commission comments? I would say, John, thank you for covering the low density, medium density. I know that that was time consuming, but I think, which I think is fantastic, the more new folks that we have in here, that are new to the process and trying to gain understanding. I think it's good to be able to break that down and take an extra few minutes, so thank you
Yeah,
for doing that.
thank you.
And thanks for your hard work on that text amendment. That's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
and thanks for putting up with my ignorance on it.
No, they're all good commentaries, so that's what the process is for.
Commissioners, anything else for the good of the order? Thank you for all that you do and the hours that you put in the last several months. It is greatly appreciated. And if there's nothing else, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.